All right, guys. My name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional body piercer, and today we're going live and we're answering all those piercing questions that you might have. Now, if you're going to ask me a question, the best thing you can possibly do is ask as thorough of a question as you possibly can. If you say, hey, how do I get rid of this bump? I need to know the context. How did you get that bump? Are you hitting it? Is it getting caught on towels? All these types of things are factors. And also the length of time that you've had it. Now, if you have other questions related to body mods or tattoos, I'll do my best to answer those. But my expertise is in body piercing. Again, my name is Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional piercer, and I've been piercing since 1994. Now, if you haven't already, might as well just hit that like and subscribe, because I'm going to ask you later, and I don't want to have to keep asking. So just go ahead and hit that button. And behind the camera, we do have Nova asking questions. So
hi, everybody.
Yeah, so there's Nova for you. And how are we doing over there, Nova? Do we have any questions coming up yet, or where are we at?
Yes, we have. We got a couple people in here. Already up to almost 30 viewers. So hi, everybody.
It's so cool.
We've got highs from Zach, Just Erica, Trudy Miller, Katie Doll, Beth, She Be Rocks. I think it's Jen, Xen.
Okay.
We've got a ton.
Awesome. Welcome in, everybody.
Forgive me if I butcher this name, but Manan Vashisht. Hey, Scott, how are you doing? Where's Kelsey?
Kelsey's at work, and she's putting holes in people as we speak. There's probably a good chance that she might be watching this, so watch for her comments. I bet she'll pop in here sooner or later.
Yeah, she might.
Yeah.
I know she's been doing a lot of fun piercings lately.
And another thing, too, is it's really fun hearing where everyone's from. So drop a little thing in the comments saying where you're from. It's I love to hear, because it's from all over the world, and it's so cool that we have such a small community that is worldwide. It's pretty incredible. It really
Absolutely.
is. Yeah.
We've got one from Becky C. Hey, Scott, I hope February has been good to you.
It's
so
been
many
really
highs. Someone from Minnesota is here.
All right, cool. My home state.
Yes. And we do have a question from Joseph Dandy.
Sure.
Can you blow out a septum?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
It is.
Now, let's break down a blowout. Blowouts generally happen in the earlobe, and in the earlobe, it's kind of like from pushing like you heal a tube of scar tissue through there, and you end up pushing all that scar tissue out the back, which kind of creates this fold. Sometimes it seems like there's an extra bubble coming off the backside of your ear, and that's what a blowout is. Now, if a septum is done properly through the septum, that is probably one of the thinnest, skinniest piercings you can possibly have. And because it's so thin, I can't imagine you would push that tube out the other side. Now, it is possible, but I'm not 100% sure. I would lean towards no. And the only way you would really get something like that also is because you're overstretching. So you probably need to slow down if something like that happened. It's naturally lubricated, so it's not going to be grabbing the same way. So I would lean towards no unless you're really, really overdoing it. Good
Awesome.
question.
Absolutely.
And if you're a piercer and you have another opinion, definitely let me know, because that's a fantastic question.
It is. Let's see. We've got a lot of highs. Hi, everybody. I'm going to do my best to get through everyone. We got some people from Germany, Buffalo, New York. That's close to my hometown in Pittsburgh. Georgia, Cape Town, South Africa, Jackson, Wisconsin. Hi from Poland, North Dakota.
Wow.
Awesome. We've got
Poland and North Dakota, or Poland and North Dakota?
Poland and North Dakota. I don't think there's a... Well, I mean...
You never know. You never know.
It's true. There are a lot of Parises in the United States, right? Awesome. We've got another question from Emily. How long should I wait to downsize a nostril piercing?
All right. So downsizing a nostril piercing... I would say a minimum of 1 month, sometimes several months, and it depends on how it's doing. Now, downsizing a nostril isn't as important as downsizing a helix or something like that, because the helix is going to change angles, and the nostril, generally, that bar is ridiculously long. So if it's way too long, sticking out and getting caught on things, you can downsize that, I would say, after about a month to 2 months. But generally, you don't have to.
Awesome. Good question.
Yes, absolutely.
Hi from Louisville, from Hybrid Cat. Will piercing bumps eventually go away on their own? I'm bracing myself for one to I think, to be up on my nostril. Had to remove and re-pierce because of one.
Okay. Nostrils are notorious for getting that bump, and sometimes it's from getting pierced with a nostril L or a nostril screw because of the amount of movement and irritation. I know a lot of people are still using these, and honestly, switch over to the threadless, like the neo metal push pin style studs. They work a million times better. There's not the irritation, they're not falling out, and all it takes is for that jewelry to come out or move around a little bit for it to get irritated. So the less it moves, the faster it's going to heal. And try to figure out what you did last time. If you got a bump, what were you getting caught on towels? Do you sleep on that side of your face where the pillow's constantly, being pressed in? All these things are factors. And then as far as the wound, as far as the aftercare goes, basically what you need to do is you need to do a wound wash spray once a day. Wound wash is sterile saline solution, and what you do is you spray the outside of your piercing and the inside. You don't need to use a lot, just a quick spritz on both sides so the area gets wet. And generally, after a couple minutes, I tell people to take a piece of gauze or even like a paper towel to wipe off the dried crusties that are on there. They're not dry anymore now. They should be soft enough. Like if you soak a scab, it gets nice and gooey. That's when you can just kind of wipe it off, because we don't want those scabs on there or those crusties, because that's what causes a lot of the irritant. So clean it properly. Make sure it's not moving around. It's the proper size. If it's too tight or way too long, it can cause problems too. It's a lot of factors. Just try to assess the situation, and if you get the bump, it's not the end of the world. Just don't try to pop it. Don't turn it into a chemistry experiment. So many people are like, oh, I'm going to try tea tree oil, I'm going to try this, and I got this bump treatment from Amazon, and none of those things are doing what they're supposed to do anymore, because you've mixed all those chemicals, and your body's just like, I don't know what's going on anymore, and it's going to freak out even more. So less is more in a situation like that.
Absolutely. I feel you, Hybrid Cat. I currently have 2 irritation bumps on my high nostrils, so they're going down slowly but surely, but it can take a while.
It's frustrating. Patience. And another factor is stress. A lot of times people don't realize this, but if you're stressing out, if you're taking all these exams and things like that in school, and, piercings will flare up. And if you're worried about a piercing, you're constantly freaking out, constantly looking in the mirror, you're stressing yourself out about it, and you're not making the situation any better. So just try to calm down. People get bumps. It will go away as long as it stops being irritated.
Yep. We've got a bunch more questions.
Cool.
So I'm going to scoot us along.
All right.
We've got another question from Manan. Stretch to 0 gauge. Can't find tunnels. Help me know of any online platforms where I can source tunnels, please.
I really can't suggest too much other than body art forums. Sometimes you can search by category, by material and size and brand. If you're looking for like titanium tunnels, I know Anatometal makes them. I'm not sure of many other companies who would. You can always do glass stuff. Sometimes you're going to find like Gorilla Glass or Glassware Studios, 2 fantastic companies. A lot of piercing studios will carry one of those 2 companies if they have any sort of glass plugs, and they could get something you need. And you might just need to talk to your piercer and say, hey, I need some glass plugs. We have connections where we can order that jewelry for you. Now, if we don't have it in stock, it doesn't mean we can't get it. We probably can.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Awesome. We've got a comment from Jasper about the blown out septum. They said that I've blown out my septum for sure. I sized up to a 0 gauge and definitely went too fast.
Okay, there we get where you went too fast. I can't imagine it's an easy thing to do, but yeah, if you push it too much, I mean, honestly, that hurts a lot too. So I'm sorry. I've done it myself. I haven't blown out my septum, but I've gotten to the point where it was too much and it was not pleasant.
Not happy.
No.
All right, we've got one from Savannah. Hey, Scott, I have a question regarding switching a nose stud into a thinner gauge hoop. Will that make me get a bump, or will it shrink down just fine?
Maybe. It depends on how long you've had your piercing. Generally, I tell people a minimum of 4 months before you even think about changing to a hoop. It may seem healed after a month, but I promise you it is not ready. Because the thing is you're healing a straight piercing with a normal stud, and then when you put a hoop in there, you're putting a small curve through there. And it's like if that curve pinches or distorts your cartilage too much, that's what's going to cause the bump. So that's why it's like you need to have this 4 months minimum so that hole actually is loose on the actual piercing, so it doesn't put the pressure when you put the curve in there. That's what minimum. Now the thing is when you put it in, you might get a little irritation for a day or two, and you generally are going to be okay after that. Now, if you get a bump right away, the best thing to do is go back to the stud. I mean, you can sometimes get rid of the bump, but the irritation's there, and now you have something spinning, keeping it irritated. It's real tough at that point. So the best thing to do is generally go back to the stud and try again a month later.
Awesome.
Yes. Cheers.
Cheers. We've got one from Jason. How big can I stretch a Prince Albert piercing? Which I love that question.
That is an amazing question. First of all, we're going to say, what is a Prince Albert? A Prince Albert is a penis piercing where it goes in the urethra and out the bottom, the back side of the head. And generally, people are wearing like some sort of a ring in there. And the thing is you can stretch this out fairly large, but the thing is the urethra is low enough on the bottom side of the penis where once you start adding weight, it's going to shorten the distance of the skin in between. So I've heard of people going up to about a 1/2 inch. I've heard of people going bigger, but I've also heard of people doing like low amplang piercings horizontal through the head to help support the weight. I don't know if that was
wild.
really even feasible, but yeah, I think you just get to the point where you just run out of room and the weight can cause that skin to get less and less to completely reject out. So realistically, 00 is pretty damn big.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good size. You can go bigger, but then it's
also with PAs. Scott, you probably know more about this than I do, but I've seen that like the urethra, like just through like moving through the jewelry, you get to a point where like the urethra is almost the size of like the underhead of
correct.
And I know a lot of people that just end up snipping it at that point, like the little thin layer of
yes,
skin
so it's almost like a little sub-incision where it's actually split in the bottom. Now the thing is too is your urethra will stretch because people get into some sort of urethral play. There's things called sounding tools where people can stretch it out. I don't know realistically how big you could stretch your urethra out, but I know people have gone to 00s without problems. Anything past 00s, and the other thing too is you're gonna have problems finding jewelry. You can bend steel and cast steel stuff, but you're trying to get titanium because once you get to that size, the weight is going to be a major, major issue, and you need the lightest weight possible jewelry, which is going to be the titanium, which no one's going to really be able to bend titanium. That's a 1/2 inch.
Yeah, it's that sounds like a nightmare.
So, yeah, might be able to get a curved barbell or something in there, but jewelry will be an option at that size too, or a problem, not an option.
Awesome. We've got a few more highs from Joseph Dandy.
Hello.
Hi, my guy, from Carlos. You're a poet, don't you know it? Hey, Scott and gang from South Carolina.
Awesome.
Visitor from India. Another piercer from Finland. Hi there, Rigo.
What's up, Rigo?
A smiley face from Monica. And
hi, Monica.
A hi from Sarah. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for saying hi.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for everyone for being here. And again, if you don't know who I am, my name's Scott Wilkinson. I'm a professional piercer, and I've been doing this for a while, just shy of 30 years at this point. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's what we're doing. We're just talking piercings today. If you have comments, something unrelated to piercings, I'll answer as much as I can, best of my ability.
Awesome. I actually really like this next question from Jax. Hi, Scott, from St. Louis, Missouri. I am 55 years old and diabetic. I got a helix piercing 3 weeks ago, and I wanted to see when I can have it downsized and when it will be fully healed.
All right. So the key word here, there's two of them, is helix, which takes a while to heal, and number 2 is diabetic, which means your immune system generally isn't as strong to heal things, so it is a slower healing process. I don't know if that's 100% true, if it's the immune system that changes, but anyways, diabetics generally heal things a little bit slower, so you might need to take a little bit longer. Generally, I tell people a minimum of a month before you can downsize any sort of helix piercing. It's better to wait around the 2 months unless it's causing problems. If it's getting caught on things and yanked all the time because it's just too much length, definitely downsize to that shorter post. But keep in mind, when you're healing something like this, you're trying to heal that tubus scar tissue, and in the early stages, it's thin and easily ripped and torn, especially when we're changing jewelry in and out. Granted, we use tools to try to minimize that damage, but it's still sometimes better to err on the side of safety, just like at least a month. Give yourself a little bit of time. And, if you have a ton of crusties, it's super, super sore and it's tight, you're definitely not ready yet.
Awesome. Thanks again for coming back. Let's see. To size down, can I bring my own jewelry or should I purchase at the studio? I don't want to be rude, but I have good quality jewelry coming from piercers because of previous piercings.
Sure, sure. I mean, I myself don't care. Every shop is going to be different. But one thing to keep in mind is like, sometimes you need to downsize to a different size than you already bought. And that part would suck if you came in and said, oh, I need to downsize to a 9/32, and you really need a 1/4 inch, and then you're buying the jewelry twice. You know, that could be a factor. Or you just downsize and you just have a little bit extra room and it's not the proper downsize. That's the only real negative I would say. But as a piercer, I also can say that a lot of people bring in some really crappy jewelry, and it's just like, that part scares me because you're still in the healing process and you're putting low quality jewelry in there, and you're better off, in my opinion, keeping a longer piece in there of higher quality metals and materials that allow this to heal better. What do you think, Nova?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just generally speaking, depending on where you are in the healing, in the healing process,
but the metals make a big difference.
Yeah, the metals make a huge difference for sure. But what I was thinking of is like, you know, would those flatbacks be reprocessed before putting into a downsize? Because again, depending on the piercing, you might still have an open wound. And if the jewelry that you have is contaminated in some way,
that's a good factor. I know a lot of places will send sealed packages, and my customers let me open things up when I'm downsizing or changing their jewelry out, so I know what it is. I mean, the other thing is, like, as a consumer, it's hard for you to really know the truth. And I hate saying this, but like Amazon and Etsy and all these other companies, there's just so many lies. You know, people come to me and it's like, oh, it says surgical steel. I'm like, it's pink. How do you have pink surgical steel? You can't anodize steel. You know, another thing saying it's titanium, but I'm looking at this thing and it's like, it's way too shiny. This is definitely not titanium. And these are all these companies because Amazon and Etsy don't back up what they say about the sales pitch. And, sometimes like I get jewelry from companies and I get mil-spec sheets, which tell me exactly what metal it is, where it was bought from, what's in there. So I know exactly what we're putting inside the body. And on Amazon, it's like, yeah, it's titanium, but it's like, what grade? And like, it's the good stuff, that's all you're really going to get. So that's the scary part. Now, when you said that you have a good friend who's a piercer and you get supplies from your piercer, okay, that's a better situation. But it sucks because consumers really think, oh, I bought it. It's from here. It says it's this. It says it's this. And it's like, it's not most of the time.
To me, it seems more like they've had piercings that maybe they've taken out in the past and then are like wanting to reuse the flatbacks.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in a situation like that, it's not as big of a deal to fully reprocess it. I would still autoclave it, and we run it through a Statum, which is a really, really fast autoclave. But if I didn't have a Statum, a really fast autoclave, it's like autoclaves take about half-hour minimum for the full process, and they'll get partially through the dry cycle. So, I mean, yeah, it's kind of tough, but it can be done.
Absolutely.
And cold soaks aren't good enough. Yes. You're going to see people do this all the time where it's like, oh, I'm just going to drop it in here, put in this fluid. It's going to totally sterilize and sanitize. Like, if it worked, we would all do that. We wouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars on all these autoclaves and sterilization processes.
Yep.
It doesn't work. That's why nobody does it.
It's true.
Yeah. It gets it cleaner, but it doesn't get it sterile.
Yes. All right, we've got one from Shadow Linkle. Hi, I'm the kid who loved piercings. I do remember you. You talked last time about wanting to be a piercer.
Cool.
My mom was a tattoo artist, so I also love tattoos. And I started doing stick and pokes on silicone. Never on real skin though, not unless I'm good when I'm an adult. But it is cool.
Stick and pokes, huh? I'm really curious what those would be. Because it's not the real professional way to go about it, but there's the traditional way where people do the stick and poke. And it'd be fun, It's like, yeah, you're not doing it on anybody personally, but you should look into the history of some of that, because sometimes they're using like whale bones or certain things, and like they're carving like multiple needles. And it'd be interesting if you could try to figure something like that. Not saying do this on people, but the silicone, you kind of play around with that. And there's different ways, the hammering method and the... Yep. But yeah, stick and poke at home is generally not a good idea for a tattoo.
Agreed.
But that traditional old school stuff is rad. I would love to get something like that someday.
Same. we've got a comment from Brick Johnson, who I still love your name. Thanks for your advice on one of your previous live streams. Got my scrotum pierced at an 8 gauge 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Brad.
I hope it went well. That is an amazing piercing. And they generally heal pretty quick, too. You know, getting crusties pulled inside any piercing like that is kind of uncomfortable, but keep it clean and happy healing to you. Congratulations.
Let's see. We've got one from Sarah Holmes. I'm sorry, I skipped someone. We've got one from Corey Taylor 666.
What's up, Corey?
Quick question. Just got snake bites done a month ago, but was wondering when I could switch to hoops. I have these bumps on the inside, and they're getting annoying.
Well, the hoops would make it 1,000 times worse. So I would definitely stick to the studs and maybe downsize, if you haven't already, to a shorter post unless there's no room for the downsize. When I tell people to do rings in their lip piercings, generally you're looking at a minimum like 3 to 4 months. If you change it too soon, okay, here's the deal with lip piercings. The inner tissue on the inside is really thin and it's really, really soft. And if you change to rings too soon, it completely changes the angle of the piercing and that fistula. And when you put the studs back in, they're generally really weird, bad angles and kind of pointing straight down. So minimum 3, maybe even 4 months, wait for that fistula, that tube of scar tissue to get thick enough to hold the ring properly. Okay. Some people have much thicker lips. I know I have a much thicker bottom lip, and I probably would need to wait a couple more months on top of that just because there's more to heal. So just kind of listen to your body, be patient. And if you put it in there and it starts feeling like it's cutting, it's irritating, or you're getting big bumps again, you'd have to switch back, but you need to wait several more months. Several.
Agreed.
Yes.
We've got a question from Sarah Holmes. I'm looking to get rid of my lip piercing for either a labret or a vertical labret or labret. Conflicted on which one to get. As a piercer, what is your preference if in helping a client decide?
Okay, so there's pluses and minuses to both of them. Any sort of labret or lip piercing where the piercing's going into your mouth, the jewelry could always come unthreaded or come on unattached, and if you bite down on it, you're going to chip and damage your teeth. That's always a risk with any sort of oral piercing. Now, you can do a vertical lip, vertical labret, sometimes upper like a gestrum, lower vertical labret, sometimes sides. There's a bunch of cool things you can do with that. Now, the negative with this is you're going to have 2 scars on your lip when you decide not to have it, as opposed to the one which is generally hidden a little bit more underneath the lip. So, but you're not going to have near the chance of the damage because most people don't play around with their lip piercing like that unless they pulled it into their mouth and then were eating and then bit down on it. I don't see that happening. So vertical labrets save your teeth and your gums, but there's more scars on the outside. Regular labrets are less scars. They seem to heal a little bit quicker, but there's the risk of tooth and gum damage. So I go with vertical labrets. That's my favorite.
I would agree for the same reasons.
Yep.
All right. A question from Carlos Virasamy. For a first earlobe piercing, what is the best comfortable earring there is?
A labret. I like generally 18 gauge, maybe 16 gauge labrets, where it has a flat disc on the back so you can sleep on it right away. You could choose different size tops. You know, you can do gems, whether a prong or bezel. You can do a flat disc, a plain ball. So you have a lot of options. But the thing is just a straight up labret or a barbell is going to be the most comfortable. Rings spin and rotate. You're going to have more crusties getting pulled inside. Curved barbells. You're putting a curved bar through a straight piercing. Doesn't make any sense. So, yeah. Labret, barbell, titanium. Does make a difference.
Implant grade.
Yes.
The good stuff. Okay, from Jesse Jamaican. Wagwan Squat. I'm from Jamaica, living in the U.S. Love your knowledge of piercing. By chance, will you be visiting New York City soon?
I would love to. I have no plans to go to New York City. It's a place I have never been, but it's a place I've always wanted to go. I am hoping to do a little bit more traveling here in the future. I don't know how near future, but no plans right now. But I'm not opposed to it.
Awesome. I have some friends in New York City. If you do need any help with piercing, go see Johnny Pierce at 9 Moons, or Star Ellis. She owns the place, I believe. They're awesome people.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hear New York's pretty amazing. I've just never gone, and I've always wanted to. I'm definitely a big city person.
Me too. Okay, from Lexi. Let's see.
Hey, Lexi.
I think this is a response to an older one, or maybe not. It says, literally taking out jewelry to clean it. I've had these for a year. The problem is that they're internally threaded and the top is stuck. What do I do?
All right. The longer you have your piercing, sometimes oils, shampoos, soaps, things like this kind of create a seal and lock that bead or the ball into place. Now, the issue we generally have is we spend so much energy pinching on the jewelry to try to spin it, and then it hurts our hands. So if you're able to get latex or nitrile gloves, some sort of gloves so you get a good grip, that will change everything. Sometimes even just taking a paper towel, like rip it in parts and like hold on to the inside and the outside, and you'll be able to get a better grip on it that way too. That's going to be your best bet. And then sometimes do it right after a shower. You know, if you've taken a long hot shower for 10 plus minutes, maybe some of that steam and the hot water is going to actually soften those things up on the outside, loosening the seal a little tiny bit. Don't use pliers, things like that, because those tools from the garage are going to scratch your jewelry really, really bad. If you're having that many problems, you can always go see a piercer and we can help get it out. We have the right tools for the job where we can not scratch, mar, or ding up your jewelry, and we have a better angle, and we have those gloves. So
they help.
Yeah. Don't feel bad. This happens all the time. But yeah, gloves or paper towel, get a better grip, and it should just go for you. Good luck.
Good luck.
Yes.
Alice Durrell, did you get your tattoos on your cheek and nose redone? They're popping in a good way today. Smiley face.
Right on. Well, thank you very much. No, I actually haven't. They were done. I lost track of the time, like how long ago. Maybe it was 6 months, maybe even a year ago that I went up and had Tom Strom redo them. But I just kind of rearranged things because we've had Kelsey here before, and now I'm more in the middle of the table, and we rearrange the lights. So maybe the lights are doing me favors.
Always. Okay.
But thank you.
From Laura Mills. Had my tongue piercing for a couple of years. Noticed the top ball indents into the tongue slightly. Should I be concerned?
No. Sometimes tongues are weird when you're downsizing. And I had this argument, or not argument, but discussion with someone a couple days ago because they wanted to go to a shorter bar. But when you stick your tongue out, there's different thicknesses you need to accommodate for, and you need to accommodate for the thickest point. So you can make it real tall and wide and stick it out, and it's a firm tongue. And if you have that super short, like the shortest you can possibly go, because it looks a lot skinnier that way than that way. So if I accommodated for the shorter and then I stuck my tongue out, it's going to pinch on the tongue. Also keep in mind when we're laying down, our heads are back, tongue goes back, and it does get fatter in our mouth too. So a lot of people like try to keep downsizing more and more, and it's like you need to accommodate for both sides. So maybe you need to get a slightly longer bar in there. Just be careful. Don't get in the habit of playing with it. Or maybe change out to like some titanium jewelry, because sometimes wearing the steel, the weight of that bead can cause that indentation. But it's not going to go through. It's not going to close up on the inside like that. And chances are if you take it out, it's going to go back to its normal shape. It always does, because when people first get it pierced too, people are always like, oh, I have that indent. I'm like, just relax, wait till the swelling goes down, and it should go away. And it generally does. Yeah, but no worries.
A question from Nick. My orbital helix was looking good for the first month, but now I'm nearing 3 months and it's a little puffy. Trying my best not to mess with it.
Okay. First thing I'm going to address is I'm guessing you really do have an orbital, which means 2 piercings and 1 ring or 1 hoop is going through both of them. If you're talking about a normal helix piercing and you just have the ring going around your ear, you have did it say 2 bumps or 1?
No bumps. It just says that it's a little puffy.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be swollen. Can you pull up on the computer, Nova, like what an orbital and what a helix is? Like if it's a single piercing and you just have a ring in there, change it to the stud because it's going to heal much, much better. if you have an actual orbital, they're going to be swollen. They're really, really tough to take care of. Just do your best to try to get the swelling down, like ibuprofen, Aleve, Advil, and sometimes even like once a day, maybe soaking your ear in some cold water to help relieve some of that. But yeah, these are actually orbitals. Like the one right there. You can see exactly how this looks. You're pulling up my video.
I was going to say, I think I recognize this guy.
God, look at me. That's back when I was dyeing my beard, and I said, I'm done dyeing my beard. I don't know if you can tell or not, but yeah, these are orbitals. They're tough to heal. They're going to be swollen, and when they swell, they put pressure on the piercing hole, so that's what makes these so difficult to deal with. So, yeah, definitely. I'm trying to look at some of the other orbitals on it. Most of those up there look like they're actually healed orbitals, which is pretty rad. Actually, except for the one at the bottom. Can you go down to the one that says Sweetie High? Yeah, because you can still see some of the purple on the ear, so that's a fresh one, and it hasn't even started swelling yet. Yeah, that's fresh. You can still see a little bit of
violet.
Yeah, yeah. A little bit of blood on the top of that one. So, but that looks like a really good piercing. I might have gone a little bit thicker. It looks like that might be an 18 gauge. I like to do a minimum of 16, but that's personal preference. So, yeah, it probably is because you compare that to the Rook. I could, talk piercings like this all day long. So, but yeah, good question. You're going to be puffy. Just get the swelling down and be patient.
Indeed. Okay. From Sammy, getting pierced soon. I'm getting my eyebrow done.
Sweet.
That's a fun one. Eyebrows are coming back.
They really are. They really are. When I first got into body piercing, it was my most hated piercing. I thought they were ugly and they were dumb, and I started doing them, and I'm like, I just don't like these. And before I know it, I ended up getting mine done, and now they're some of my favorite ones.
It's weird how I have the exact same experience with eyebrows. Is like I started off not really liking them. Mostly because I had just seen so many bad ones that and
so many safety pins through there, and it's like, oh.
But now I actually really dig them.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yep.
From Marvin Philibert, how rough is it to heal a guiche piercing?
I couldn't heal mine, but I overdid it. When I had my imagine that. I think I had mine pierced at a 6 gauge, and I did a captive, but I think I did it way too deep and big. When I first had mine done, it was a friend of mine, Greg, who did the piercing. But we had never done one before, and we just put it too deep. So, like, I think I had a 7/8 inch ring or something in there, and like I couldn't walk. Every time I had to sit down, I had to move it. So it was like 2 weeks of just uncomfortable terribleness, and I took it out. Now, I'm not saying it's a terrible piercing, because I do this piercing for people and they heal them up and they love these piercings. Get it with a curved barbell or a straight barbell up in that area, change to the ring afterwards. I mean, you can start with the ring, but the placement's super, super important. If it's too deep in there, it's uncomfortable. So go to a piercer who knows what they're doing. And I think it's a piercing people generally don't retire. I retired mine because the jewelry was improperly placed, but otherwise, they're great piercings.
Mm-hmm.
Go Geesh.
Agreed. From Oleg Denisov, let's see. Is it safe to go for an MRI with titanium rings / rods on? It's not magnetic, so you should not really pull them out, right? Or they will not be pulled out.
All right. So you are correct if you went to a reputable piercer who looks in and gets the proper metals. Now, that is the dilemma. A lot of these MRI technicians will ask, they're not going to trust you as the consumer that you have that grade of titanium where it won't get pulled out. Because if you had the wrong stuff and it's magnetic, it's getting ripped out. And they don't want to have that liability, that lawsuit, all that problems that go along with it. So that's why they just say everything has to come out. Now, I had a friend who was an MRI technician. No, I had a friend who was a piercer who had a roommate who was the MRI technician. And he went in there and he got an MRI with 14 karat gold, 18 karat gold, yellow gold, titanium, surgical steel, niobium, glass, acrylic, like wood. I think he tried every material that we use. Nothing got pulled out. Nothing got heated up. Now, the only issue would be is like, hey, if you have a big plug in your ear and you're trying to take a look at the side of your neck and that plug's blocking what you're trying to look at, that's the issue, And But again, you don't want that stuff ripped out. Those MRI technicians aren't going to trust you, so the chances of you being able to keep it in are slim to none. Now, if you're worried about it, put a retainer in, something glass or plastic. They know it's not a magnetic and it won't cause a problem. I talk a lot.
I think that's what the people want, Scott. No, I think that's a great answer. And yeah, I agree. I am the guy that brought mill certs to his MRI. This was
Of course you did.
This was before I was a piercer, actually.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I had a really bad knee injury when I was in my like late teens, early 20s, and yeah, I was just like, I've got the papers, because I had a relatively fresh nipple piercing that I did not want to lose because I had tried it a couple of times.
The horizontal ring?
No, that was after. Yeah, that one was after.
He had a really tiny nipple piercing. Yeah.
The first nipple piercing I got, which was basically in a basement. It was a shop, but it was in like underground. Yeah, dude put the tiniest ring in it, and it was not happy. It stuck straight out. Yeah.
Not like horizontal, like a normal. That ring was just like, hey, check me out.
Oh yeah. Awesome. We've got one from Sheeby Rocks.
What's up, Sheeby?
I bumped my ear pretty badly 2 months ago, and now I have a bump on my industrial and my conch that isn't going away. What can I do?
I would try emu oil. Okay, first of all, make sure you have the right length bar to accommodate for the swelling and possible bumps or irritation that you have. Because sometimes you get hit in the ear and like your jewelry, which fit right before it, now is way too tight. And if it's pinching, you're not going to be able to get rid of bumps or irritations like that. So make sure you have the right size bar. And number two, emu oil works amazing. I haven't talked about it this podcast yet. I normally talk about it almost every podcast. But emu is the fatty minerals and stuff that's in the upper back of the emu, and it has the viscosity that matches humans' oil perfectly. So when you put this oil on your skin, it absorbs in, and all those vitamin nutrients get in there just where it needs to be, and the piercing just magically starts feeling better. It works amazing on burns. I don't know. I need to do a full video on just emu oil because it's an incredible, incredible thing, especially for irritated piercings. They even claim it can help with the healing of piercings. I've never tried that, so I don't know. But yeah, that's what I would do. Just make sure you have the proper size jewelry in there. Try not to move it around it or irritate it, and just maybe that emu oil. And good luck to you.
Good luck.
Sometimes it takes a while once they get hit or bumped really good like that.
It's true, especially industrials.
Yeah,
I feel like
they're rough.
Yeah, because the movement in one can affect the other one too. So they're tough.
Yep.
From Ursula's Odds and Sods. Still love that.
What's up, Ursula?
Does stretching tape have a shelf life? I think I need tape to get to 9/16, but I plan to be there for at least a year since I have so much jewelry in that size when I thought it was my goal size.
Does stretching tape have an expiration date? Is that the question?
Yes, I think so.
Now, if you're talking about stretching tape, you could be talking about bondage tape, which could be, it's kind of like electrical tape without the sticky adhesive on there. I don't see that really expiring. Otherwise, you could be talking about Teflon tape, which is white plumber's tape. Teflon. Yeah. I can't imagine it expires. Now, the only time I would say it's going to be bad is don't wrap tape over the old tape that's been on there for a couple days or a week because things are going to get funky in there. You need to take the old tape off and keep replacing that tape. So if that's what you mean by expires, yes, it does expire, and you should have fresh tape each time you apply a layer. So first time you do 2 or 3 layers, take those 3 layers off, now put in 4 or 5, and next time take off all those 5 and put on 5 or 6, and that's kind of how you have to kind of step your way on up and keeping it clean. But yeah, other than that, I don't know if it would expire. Good question.
It is a good question.
Yes. You guys make me think. You really make me think. And I love that. I do.
Me too. From City. In your opinion, what is the safest way to stretch a septum? I would love to stack rings, but not sure how to start. And I trust you more than Google. I've heard of several different ways. Thank you.
There's good and bad on Google, so stretching your septum. First of all, fully heal your septum up. I don't know what size you're at. A lot of people start at 16 gauge, maybe even sometimes a 14 gauge. And if you've had it for several months, you could probably just grab or buy the next size ring. So if you're at a 16, go buy the 14, And once, like the middle of the day, if your jewelry just moves freely and it's super loose, when you're in the shower, take that one out and see if the other one just slides right in. And generally it does. Now, pay attention to where your septum is pierced, because that's the toughest part about stretching piercings like this, is finding the piercing hole. You can't see it. A lot of us assume that it's more in the middle of our nose, but a lot of times it's more towards the tip of our nose. So if you can't find it, bring it forward, and a lot of times it falls right through. This happens all the time. I actually saved several septums last week because people are like, oh no, it's been gone for 6 years, 5 years. And it's like, well, I hate saying it, but you're not looking in the right spot. And I looked inside their nose because I could see. They can't see inside their nose, but I can. Took my taper and went right in. And they're like, shut up. Every time. I love it. And my favorite thing is, like, people come in and say, I need it re-pierced. It's definitely closed. When they say it's definitely closed, that's like 100% of the time when it's open.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yep.
They stick around.
Yeah. But stacking your septum, just buy one, start off by just getting a little bigger ring. And then if you want to do the stacking thing, maybe buy a couple 18 gauge clickers. Do the clickers, not the seam rings. Seam rings are where you actually twist the ring to the side. They can work, but once you get a couple in there, trying to maneuver and get it closed is a pain in the butt, to say the least. A clicker is that little hinged ring like this, and basically you just slide it in and you just push it and it closes, and it's a lot easier to deal with if you're going to be doing the stacking, because you're going to be taking some in and out, back and forth. And what I mean by that is you're probably going to eventually have a little collection of clickers. You want to buy some 18 gauge ones, maybe some 16s, maybe a 14, so that way you have different sizes, so you don't have to do a big jump each time. But instead of wearing like 5 18 gauge rings in there, now you can wear 3 16 gauge, and then add another 18 to slowly stretch it up. See how you kind of play that game and get to where you want to go. Otherwise, you can always just go to your piercer and have them stretch it for you. Go to a nice piercer. Septums are easy for us to stretch, and it's really, really painful if we overdo it. So that's why you want to go to someone who you trust and goes nice and slow. And that's the way I always do it. Just go nice and slow, and nothing. Let me know when you need to stop, and they go, and you just stop, and just let it relax for a minute or two. And a lot of times you can continue after a couple minutes and it loosens up. And that's how I do the stretching. So hopefully that helps. Like I said, just give it a month and a half, 2 months between each stretch. Once you start getting into the 6 or 4 gauge, that's when you start getting into the more difficult sizes to get up to the next one. So, again, man, I talk a lot. All right.
No, all really good information. I feel like stretching and stacking a septum isn't something you want less information on.
They are kind of one and the same. I mean, there's a slight difference. One is just like a bigger jump every month and after 2 months. Mm-hmm. Stacking's a little bit easier, and you can kind of control it on your own. I know a lot of people really worry about the shape of their septum, because when you stack it, sometimes it kind of creates more of a line. But the thing is the nose is going to be stretchy and movie anyways. I mean, I had mine stretched up to a 0 at one point, and my nose just goes completely flat. It's like there's nothing left in there. So, I mean, I could fit a 0 gauge plug, or I could fit a bunch of 14 gauge rings in there too. So, yeah.
There you go. From Swamp Ass, the man, the myth, the legend. What up, Squat? What up, Scott? What up, cool dude behind the camera? Hi.
How you doing, man? I'm the man, the myth, the legend. I'm just...
I really want to know what your opinion. Oh no, I am calling Swamp Ass the man, the myth, the legend.
Okay, yes.
I really want your opinion on which piercings will suit me best. Are you still offering that?
It's, you could send a picture in. It's going to be a long time before something like that gets through. At this point, there's thousands and thousands of entries, and I want to try to get through them. And eventually, it's going to be back on my show. So you're welcome to send it in to get in line, because it's going to be a while. And if you don't ever do it, there's no chance it won't ever happen. No chance it'll ever happen. Yes. Get my wordage right. So that's kind of the situation there. But yeah. I will try to get to them. I'm trying. I've been so sick lately and just working hard. Excuses. I'll eventually get there. Yeah.
From Arinya, I don't have a piercing question. I just wanted to say hi. Smiley face. Hi.
Hello. thanks for being here. We love having you here.
Agreed. From Sean, I have a piercing in my ear, I'm assuming lobe, and whenever I wear a non-threaded flat back, they fall out. Why is that? I assume he'd mean threadless.
Threadless jewelry. Okay. I'm going to do some drawing here because, well, I like to draw.
It's helpful to have a visual.
It is. It really is. So, let's see if I can. Give me 1 second, guys and gals, peoples. All right. So, I'm going to cover up my microphone. Aha! Figured this out. Okay. So, you have your this side. Everything's backwards on my TV for me. Sorry, guys. So you have your libret disc where the pin gets pushed in. Now, the very top one you can see up here has a very straight pin that has no tension when it's pushed into the post. You know, you can see the second one down there. The second one is generally how I bend it. I put a small bend at the very end, and it seems to hold it in pretty taut and pretty snug. Now, sometimes if it's even too loose for this, the very bottom one here, you can see has like a lightning bolt where it's like one angle down and one back, and that puts pressure on the 2 points, the one on the bottom and the one on the top, and the middle bends. So sometimes you can push the pin into the post just a little bit and add bend and then see if it's tight enough. And you're gonna have to go back and forth to try this out. That's how you adjust this jewelry. Now, if you have that piece that just keeps coming out, it's too loose and needs to be readjusted. So that's something you can do, but the thing is you got to take your jewelry all the way out to actually adjust it, and then getting the jewelry back in can be tricky. What was this for? Was it for a lip or a nostril or
an earlobe?
Earlobe. Earlobes aren't too terrible because you got to go from the back forward, but you should be able to find the piercing hole that way. But that's how that works, and that's how they need to be adjusted.
Yep. Alternatively, you can always have a piercer bend it a little tighter.
Correct.
That's
go in and say it keeps coming out. I need this readjusted, and we can easily do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
From Mandy, just wanted to say hi, Scott. Hugs, babe. Heart,
hi, Mandy.
Heart.
Thank you. Hugs back.
From Jonathan Lee, Scott, I have a PA, 6 gauge for many years, and I want to stretch to a larger gauge, maybe 4.
Cool.
It says, is that best for stretching? I'm not 100% sure I understand the question.
Maybe the time. If you've been at that size for a long, long time, the thing is when you have a ring in there, and if you actually pull the ring and you can see where the piercing hole is, you're going to see a gap. You're not going to be able to see light, but you're going to see like the hole got stretched bigger. And if you can see that gap, or sometimes if you notice like when you're urinating, if it's dripping out of the bottom hole, that means you're at that size already, and you're going to be able to buy the jewelry, and it should just almost slide right in. If you wait long enough and you're wearing steel jewelry, there's any sort of weight on there, they do stretch pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, if you can see light, there might be
If you can see light, like you're ready to go up 2 sizes, like maybe 3.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
From Just Erica, I have surgery in March or April. Anything I can do to minimize my piercings getting upset?
You're going to want to put in retainers generally about a day before. For surgery, if you have anesthetics, they're going to make you take your piercings out, because if you have any sort of complications, your heart could stop. They need to use the defibrillators later.
Yep,
Defibrillators.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I want to go defibrilizers. Yeah. But anyways, electricity could be changed to not go through the heart. It may not be as effective, and they need it to be effective. So that's why all metal needs to be removed. Now, retainers are not generally meant for long-term wear. And so generally a day or 2 before is when you want to get the retainers put in. A lot of retainers actually have a little rubber band or an O-ring on the front, which means it's eventually going to fall off. So that's why I don't want you to do it a week before, because you're going to lose your piercing before you even get to the operation. So keep that in mind. Sometimes if you're getting worked on like around your ear, they're not going to allow you to have retainers in your ear because it's going to interfere with where they're working. If you have to work over your chest, you're going to lose your nipple piercing. That's kind of what I'm saying. Or take it out. Don't try to mess with it, and hopefully the hole stays open and you can see your piercer, and we can gently stretch it back up. Now, one of the worst things people do is after surgery is they try to shove things back in until it bleeds. You've just damaged that fistula, which means it's a complete open wound again, and everything can physically seal back up, and that's why people lose their piercings. So it's best to just make that appointment with your piercer and have your piercer put the jewelry back in. We have the right tools, which makes it the least harmful and the most gentle to not damage your piercing. Words.
Yeah, the tools we use are definitely helpful.
Yeah, So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Don't. If they say it has to come out, it has to come out. Yeah.
Awesome. Moving forward, Sarah Holmes. Also another question.
Sure.
My ears are spaced to 00 gauge, and I was wondering if another ear piercing beside it would be difficult.
It really depends on your anatomy. I mean, I've seen a lot of people have multiple piercings in their earlobe. I'm assuming you're doing a second earlobe piercing. You should be able to get one in there. I don't know if you could necessarily stretch it up to the same size. So a lot of times people go big to medium to smaller and work their way on up. So you can definitely stretch it up a little bit. It really depends on your anatomy. When you get to the 3rd or 4th holes is when it starts getting questionable whether you can have that as a lobe piercing, because sometimes it just falls into the cartilage category. So, but yes, you should be able to have more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The right as long as you like you said, as long as you have the anatomy for it.
You know, like I'm the exception here. Like you can see, I have no earlobe. I tried even a single piercing. I couldn't even get a single one to heal anymore because I had my earectomy, lobectomy. Lobectomy is what we're going to call it.
I like it.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Beth here, hoping I can share a story.
I would love that.
My helix got infected a couple months ago. In parentheses, cheap jewelry sucks.
Mm-hmm.
All I did was wash with soap and water and then use sterile saline for a few days. It works.
It really, really does. Now, as far as the soap goes, it's never really designed to go inside the body, but you need to keep the area clean. That's how you're supposed to use the soap. And yeah, sterile saline doesn't have magical properties at all. Your body looks at that sterile saline as itself. So you're just flushing away the bad germs with that sterile saline, and the body is pretty tough. It can heal things on its own. So that's all you're doing is you're just promoting the body to let it do its job. Good job, yeah. And cheap jewelry does suck. 100% true.
Absolutely.
100%.
I do wonder if it was only a couple days, what are the chances that they were just irritated as opposed to infected?
True. I mean, infected is a way overused term because, I mean, even for doctors, because, I mean, most doctors don't even do any sort of culture test to actually test it anymore. The thing is most wounds are going to get red for a day or two and close up, and that's what doctors and medical professionals are trained. So it stays red for a long period of time, like, oh, it's got to be infected. But inflammation is it the 2nd or the 3rd stage of the healing process? Mm-hmm. And the fact that we're trying to heal the wound open, it's a much longer process. So a lot of people just mistake that crusties and the redness is infection when inherently a lot of times it's not. Mm-hmm. It's just upset.
Just angry.
Yep. So...
from Alien Green. Good morning from Australia.
Good morning to you too. Is it really morning over there? It probably is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
so.
I'm pretty sure it's
like the other side of the world. That's crazy.
Oh yeah. Say hi to my friend Joltron at Opal Heart for me.
Yeah, Joltron's amazing.
He's a wild man. From Annika. Hi Scott, I have a question about the jewelry too.
Sure.
Is it possible to get a quote rose gold colored jewelry that doesn't leave behind green stuff? I want to get better quality jewelry.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so titanium and niobium are the types of metals that you're going to want to use, and they can be anodized. Anodized means you can change the colors. Now, a lot of people get the anodizing, and basically what we have to do is we bring our power supply up to about 65 volts, and that creates supposedly like a yellow gold color. To me, it's not perfect. It's kind of close, but nothing truly replicates the gold. Now, I know you were saying rose gold. Now, I was told they call it the devil's gold, I think is what they're calling it here, because when you get up to about 66 volts. That brings it up into the rose gold category. I think 70 is what a lot of the charts online are saying is rose gold, but I see more pink. But when you do about 66, you bring it down just a little bit, you really create almost a copper tone, which is pretty much the rose gold, because they're using copper to get that rosish hue inside that gold. So rose gold, if it's anodized, is the most accurate you can get while still maintaining a good quality metal. Sometimes you're going to get things that are PVD coated or straight up plated. There's a difference there. I think PVD is a little bit stronger, and plated generally is when the paint or the coating flakes off, and then you have a cheaper metal on the underside, which causes your ear to go green, which means you probably have some copper or way too much copper in there. So I wonder if real rose gold could cause your ear to go green because of the little amount of copper in there.
I think it's possible. It probably depends. I mean, gold is an alloy after all, so
yeah,
it has to do.
So I mean, the copper is what causes the green. So maybe it's the company you got it has way more copper in the rose gold than normal. I haven't seen it, but that could be a possibility. But if you decided to go with just like a titanium piece and had it anodized rose gold, that's going to be your best bet, and that will not turn your ear green. I promise. Yep.
It's also worth, I think, mentioning that, you know, investing in a high quality rose gold ring will also do the trick.
Correct.
If you want like a true rose gold, the quality of the gold comes to body jewelry.
And you can see it. I order from a lot of different companies, and you can see the difference in the gold, the colors, the recipes, all those types of things in there. So it makes a difference. It does make a difference. And when you're buying on Amazon and Etsy and places like that, I know I've been knocking on them. I know there's great companies out there, but it's hard to differentiate.
Yep.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, from L. Garrity. Hello, I got my conch pierced today. I love it so much.
Congratulations. Conch piercings are one of the greatest cartilage piercings.
I agree. They're my favorite ear piercing, actually.
There's so much you can do with them. You can go big jewelry, you can do small, you can do the rings. It's easier to sleep on than most other piercings. I don't ever suggest sleeping on it, but if you did, it makes it a little bit easier. Everyone's afraid of it because it's so thick, which makes that feeling of accomplishment so much better. Conch piercings are rad. Congratulations.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Savannah. Is it okay to quote unquote pierce away a mole?
No.
I think like a beauty mark. Yes. Very much no.
No. We are not supposed to pierce through moles. And you say pierce away. I mean, are you talking about like pierce underneath it and almost like cut it off? I mean, at that point, you're just removing the mole. But yeah, no, you cannot pierce through a mole like that. That can be dangerous. Can't that become carcinogenic or something like that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can absolutely become carcinogenic. If you're interested in getting a mole removed, definitely go to a dermatologist.
100%. Yeah. So
yep, not
good
something
question.
You want to mess around.
Good question. If it's just a little bit of a birthmark or a little slight discoloration, you can pierce through that. But I mean, if it's a mole that sticks out or protrudes, definitely no.
No go for sure. Let's see. From Error Codes 2. I'm going to be in Vegas this weekend. Do you take walk-ins?
We do not take walk-ins. We take appointments.
Yeah.
So if you want to come on in, you can do some jewelry shopping or you can get pierced. Just go to our website, piercing.vegas, and just schedule an appointment. And generally, we're only a day or two or so out in advance, and you should be able to find some time. But we don't take walk-ins, so you do have to schedule it. We're about 3 miles off the strip, off of Tropicana, so it's not that long of like an Uber or a taxi ride. So yeah, it's not too bad to get to, and we have plenty of parking in the background, and I would love to meet you. Make that appointment.
Absolutely. I do want to also add that Kelsey said that the week is filling up pretty quickly. So I would
the week.
I guess we're starting to book out more than a few days
this
ahead.
Nice weather out here is just like, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So definitely, I would get on that sooner rather than later.
Good to know. I sit corrected.
Typically, we only book out a couple days or a day or so ahead. But from Just Erica, I got my conch piercing 9 months ago, and it still gets irritated if I put a hoop in it. Is this normal?
Yep. No hesitation there. Patience. I mean, sometimes cartilage piercings take over a year to heal. And Again, it has to do with thickness. Sometimes the thicker conch is going to take a little bit longer to heal than some of the other areas, as long as it's not being irritated. So try not to keep changing it out too much, trying out the ring. So go back to the stud, give it a couple more months, maybe even up to the year, and then you should be able to wear that ring when it feels there's no crusties, no irritation. You can sleep on your ear, and that conch doesn't get irritated. So, but yeah, it's not surprising that it still does get irritated. Make sure you have the right size ring in there too. A lot of people put way too small, tight of a ring. Healed or not, that's going to upset it.
It's true.
Yep.
I think I can't tell if this is the Cyrillic alphabet or if the name is Atba, A-T-B-A. They said, I love your content.
Thank you very much. I love doing this stuff and love having you all here. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this. And yeah, I'll just keep doing this as long as I possibly can. This is my happy place. It really is.
From Anna Hugman, can a nose piercings migrate? I got a double nostril piercing, same side, a month apart. They are now 4+ months old, and I swear they are closer together than when I got them pierced.
Yes.
Heck yeah.
Yes, they can migrate. I'll get to this in a second here, but what I want to say is there's a difference between migration and rejection. Now, rejection is if you had an eyebrow piercing and the body pushed it all the way out, and you got your terminology absolutely perfect. So props to you for that. Migration means the angle changes, maybe just the angle changed and they started pointing in towards each other. Maybe it kind of shifted in a little bit. All it takes is like for us to sleep on it real good one night, the swelling putting pressure on the other one. I don't know if they're both pierced at the same time, if they're pierced at the right same angle. There's a lot of variables, but yeah, it totally can. But also keep in mind, if you both had them both done roughly at the same time, you're going to have some swelling for several months. And because it's swollen for several months, maybe the swelling's gone down and it relaxed in. So, yeah. But yeah, it totally could. It totally could.
Yeah, my left,
crazy.
I think it's my left forward-facing nostril migrated a little bit.
Yeah.
So it can definitely happen.
It does happen. I got pretty lucky on mine, I think.
I agree.
So I even tried putting rings in a while ago. I got to put those back in.
That was rad. Cool. You should definitely do
probably
that.
Ready again.
I
tried and then it's got bumps and I was like, nope, go back to the studs.
I think I may join you in that. One of these days.
Awesome.
Cool. From Jude Waldo, can you use retainers for when you have surgery? I just got my septum done in November and need to have surgery soonish. Don't want to lose it.
Yes. Make sure you put in a glass retainer or an acrylic retainer. Glass is definitely going to be better because it's still a little bit on the fresh side. You should be mostly healed up, but glass retainers work really good in septums, and that'll save your piercing for you. And the glass one's 100% safe, and the doctors won't even see it, so they don't want to give you a hard time about it.
Yep. Let's see. This is a good question from Tina88 or comment question. I've had 3 bad apprenticeships, but piercing is my dream. Do you have any words of motivation?
Yes, I do. Don't give up. I had a really, really crappy apprenticeship. Mine was only a couple days. I was released to the piercing world thinking I was a piercer when I didn't know anything. And I was really, really frustrated. I was loving what I was doing. Like I was done with my apprenticeship and I knew I needed an autoclave. I couldn't tell you what one was. How can I graduate from an apprenticeship and not even know what a sterilizer is, you know? So I had to look up what an autoclave was, and then I had to try to order an autoclave and figure out why. And then I had it stored in the wrong area. It was underneath my table. Like, the list just went on. And I wasn't very successful in the beginning, but I was passionate and I stuck to it. I slept in my car in parks for several weeks at a time back when I first started because I wasn't willing to give up on my passion and my love. It's from an early age, I knew I wanted to do this. Well, as soon as I found out what piercing was, which was 18. But anyways, I had a bad apprenticeship and I ended up here. I know a lot of people start with really, really crappy apprenticeships, and you eventually know what to look for and you find that right person. So just be passionate. You will eventually get there. I wish I could tell you how to find the right person. You know, the thing is everyone learns differently. So even if someone's a good piercer, they might not be the right teacher for you. you know? So you might find someone who's not quite as qualified, but they're going to teach you all the bread and butter. And then maybe once you get all the bread and butter stuff down, you might learn more hands-on in the industry. I mean, there's so many different ways to go about this, but keep educating yourself. If you go to the APP website, Association of Professional Piercers, which is safepiercing.org, I know they have some classes you can download or buy on there. There's like, Ryan Ouellette has the Piercing Wizard podcast. You can subscribe or listen to those things, and you're going to learn tons. You know, not one individual piercer knows everything. Not any of it. So you got to keep your mind open and your ears open and your eyes open so you can learn from all aspects. So, but don't give up. If you want to do it, it's an amazing job. You get to make people happy all day long. You're never going to get super rich off of it, but what is rich? You know, maybe you will.
It's a good
I'm happy in life, so I'm rich in life then, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So depends on how you look at it. But yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. You can do it.
Absolutely. And for what it's worth, Scott, we had you told me about your apprenticeship not that long ago, and I know my mentor, his apprenticeship was pretty much from a tattoo artist, and it's like, all right, here's the drawer with all of the jewelry and the needles in it. You're gonna put these rings in every piercing.
Yeah. So I don't want to say just accept anyone, but accept the best one. You know, look at all your options, and you know, you're not always going to have the person with a 300 IQ and the perfect track record to be able to teach you everything you need to know. We just got to find the best we can. There's different colleges, different teachers. It's the same thing. So,
Yep. Awesome. Let's keep it going. From Mandy, I'm going to get my nostril pierced. Can I get a tiny gem for my first time? I just want a tiny one.
Sure. The general rule of thumb is it depends on what size or what gauge they're going to pierce you at. Now, a lot of piercers, I myself only use 18 gauge. Now, they do make 20 gauge, which is slightly thinner, but I find it's more prone to bumps and problems with the 20 gauge, so that's why I only do the 18. And if you want to downsize to the smaller one in the future, you can. Now, the reason I'm saying this is if you get pierced with a 20 gauge, the smallest gem you can get put on there is going to be 1.5 millimeters. If you get pierced with a 18 gauge, the smallest you can pierce with is going to be a 2 millimeter gem. Anything smaller than those, like, you know, 1.5 for the 20 or 2 millimeters for the 18, they can get sucked into your nose. The skin goes over the top. It's a trip to the hospital where it needs to be cut out and removed. So that's the smallest you can pierce with. Once you're healed, you can then change to smaller gems because you have that tube of scar tissue and it's anchored in there. So it's less likely to get pulled inside. So hopefully that answers your question. We can go small, pretty small to start off with, but in the future, you can go smaller when it's healed.
Swamp Ass again. Shout out to Kelsey. What website do you recommend for jewelry?
Right now, the only one I'd ever say would be Body Art Forums. Body Art Forums.
Agreed.
The reason I like that one is because you search by brand. You can see exactly what brand you're getting. A lot of these other ones are just like middle people. You know, it's like, hey, I found this company here, and I'm going to be the you know. So you don't know where things are coming from. Exactly. It's just random jewelry, and they don't tell you the brands that they're actually buying. That's what I like about Body Art Forums. You can pick the quality, the material, and see exactly what it is. Safer.
Yes, indeed. From Sharon, happy to catch a stream. It's been a little while. Cheers for Dutch Brothers.
Cheers for Dutch Brothers.
Still
I love my Dutch Brothers. Oh, man. So I just went through Dutch Brothers earlier today, and they said they're going to close down for like the next month and a half because they need to do some remodeling. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Oh, the one near the shop, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a sad. There's other Dutch. I'm just going to have to drive out of my way every morning. I have to get up earlier to go get my coffee to wake up.
There you go. From Claire. Hi. I lose my Helix stud 4 days ago, but lucky, got a new stud back in.
Good.
The ball came off the bar of the stud. Should I worry about my other ball stud?
If it's threaded where the bead screws in there, you got to check that tightness once in a while to make sure it's on there. If it's the push pin style, I was showing you about where it has that pin. a lot of times they're adjusted. Either they're going to be loose or they're going to be tight. And if it's not falling off, you should be okay. But the threaded ones, you do have to check once in a while. The longer you have your piercing with threaded jewelry, natural oils, shampoos, soaps, things like that will create a seal and generally lock it in better. But if you're taking your jewelry in and out all the time, you're just going to keep loosening those threads until eventually it probably will fall out. So check it if it's threaded. Threadless might need to be readjusted if it's too loose. But if it hasn't fallen out, you should be fine.
Awesome. This is a follow-up from the person who said your tattoos looked extra.
Yeah.
Popping a little extra. She said, I'd say so. I'm going for my first tattoo next month. Also funny that the Gibbs Hatter beard and tattoo oil is amazing for all three. Revitalizes and leaves tattoos looking fresh.
For piercings and stuff?
I'm not 100% sure.
We don't ever really suggest anything other than emu oil for piercings. But yeah, a lot of times oil on beards. I'm gonna talk about this for a second because there's a lot of like tattoo balms and things like, oh, it brings out the color in your tattoo. I call BS on that one. I really do, because all they're doing is you're moisturizing the skin, and once the skin is moisturized, it's going to be more vibrant and more colorful. If you're in the shower and your tattoo gets wet, it's going to look more colorful. And then when you put an oil on the skin, it just keeps it that more moisturized and wet look. So therefore your color is going to pop, which can be amazing. And I'm not saying it does, so that's really, really cool. But a lot of these people sell these things saying, do this to bring back all the color in your tattoo. It's like, just put on lotion.
Yeah. Yep.
Put on lotion.
I know David Lee Roth from Van Halen had like a tattoo cream or tattoo balm or something.
Yeah.
That bombed. Yeah, I know there are so many people that have been putting them out, but I think ultimately, like Scott said, it's about the lubrication.
Now, I will say this, like when I do my beard in the morning, I put some oil in there, and then I kind of do some straightening process, and then I take a balm and I rub it in my hand, and I rub it all over my beard to try to hold it in place. And the leftover on my hands goes right to my head, and I do this to get a little extra shine and bring out that color. So I kind of do the same thing, but I only do it with the beard. What stuff do I use? I think old-fashioned or Amish, the old Amish. I don't know.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah. So it can work for that, but don't put any sort of oils or balms inside your piercing. It's really not meant to go in there.
I actually do it the other way. I usually condition my hair first, and then whatever's left, I put in my beard.
I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I have to start with my beard.
That's true. Let's see. Last question from me, from Sarah. I've had an industrial piercing. I've had it for about 3 to 4 years now. I have a bump on the outside. It's been there for almost the same amount of time. Is this permanent?
Most likely.
Yes.
If you took the piercing out, the bump could possibly go away a little bit, especially if you kind of massage it and break it down. But at this point, it's pretty established, and it's probably not going to go away.
Yep.
The only thing is maybe shorten your jewelry up. I mean, if your jewelry's a little extra long, you can shorten it up, and sometimes the bead pressed up against it kind of hides that bump a little bit. But other than that, yeah, it's probably there.
Yeah, I've seen it happen in even like perfectly done industrials. It's an unfortunate thing. It happens more often if you took both of the piercings out and put like a liberate in both of them. I feel like a lot of times you'll see that the angles won't match. And when that happens and you have like a long bar that's connecting both of them, oftentimes it can cause bumps like that. But like I say, I've seen it happen in perfectly executed ones also.
And what he's talking about is like if you have an industrial bar that's going across like this, like that, okay? And you take it out and all of a sudden this one kind of angles like this, and then you go to take this one out and this one angles up like that. You're twisting your ear to try to get that jewelry in. Yep. And when you twist it is when that bump happens. So that's why it could be a semi-permanent thing. It's like your ear was contorted, healed in that contorted way. So that's why a lot of industrial piercings don't actually heal. They got to be done right, piercers. Get your industrials right.
Yes, they do.
Yep.
A follow-up from Nick, who had the orbital. It is a 12-gauge orbital. He said, luckily it doesn't hurt. It just looks a little funky. Only the upper part is swollen. So.
awesome, man.
That's
The
sick.
bigger you go with a gauge like that, the better chance you are to get. Well, there's a limit, but yeah, 12 gauge. I'm jealous. I wish all my customers want to do like 12 gauge orbitals if it would fit like that.
Heck
So,
yes.
yeah, be patient. You'll get there. You'll get there.
From Elizabeth, got my nostril piercing in May last year, but it won't stop swelling when I put a ring in it. Why is it like that? Is the jewelry too small or too big? The size too thick or too thin?
What piercing?
A nostril piercing. And it looks like she said I got 1.2 millimeter. I would guess that would be 12 millimeters.
Yeah, hopefully. 12 is huge.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a recommendation here and say
It could be a 1.2 millimeter, which is a 16 gauge, I believe.
Oh, that would make more sense.
Yes.
I was gonna say 12 millimeters is insane. That can't be right.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait a minute. No,
Yeah.
that's
So it is 16 gauge, but yeah, I'm gonna make a recommendation and say that you should find a high quality piercer to go to get yourself properly sized.
Yes.
You may have been pierced at an 18 gauge or smaller, depending on where you went, and trying to put a 16 gauge ring in there is going to cause all sorts of issues. Apart from that, there's also diameter to consider. So it is 12 millimeters, which is 16 gauge, but how big or how small is the actual ring? Unfortunately, that's not something that we can tell digitally. There is no one size fits all. Everybody's anatomy is different. So I would definitely suggest getting something
100%.
getting something in from a
And
piercer.
what I was saying about earlier about like waiting some time to put a ring in your nose, if you had to wait a while and then you stretched it immediately, it's like being day one, and that's why it's being irritated and upset. Is because you would have to put a 16 gauge stud in there and then heal that for several months and let it relax to where you could wear a 16 gauge ring without causing the bump. So piercing or like stretching a piercing and then going right to a ring in the nostrils most likely going to cause a bump too. So that's, yeah, I would say downsize unless that's the look you wanted to go with, and then I would say go with the stud.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Let's see. I lost my place. Sorry about that.
It happens.
Thank you from Just Age American. Ashton said, I'm stretching my septum. We've been talking a lot about that.
Yeah, we have been.
That's a fun one to do. Here's a good question from Panos Bukis. Let's see. How does one go to become a body piercer? I'm really interested in the job, and I have a lot of free time. I just don't know where to start and what to do.
It's a full-time job. It's a big commitment, and you have to go through an apprenticeship. So you got to find a piercer who will teach you the ropes. Every state, city, country, nation is going to have different requirements, laws, and regulations. So you kind of need to figure that out. Here, I'm in Las Vegas, so they say you need to do a minimum of 6 months for an apprenticeship where you have to go under someone who has their mentor card or someone who's been piercing. Was it 2 years or 3 years, Nova? Do you know?
I don't remember offhand. I believe it's 3 years.
3 years minimum or something like that.
But I could
But
be wrong.
anyways, you're going to get taught how to do the piercing. I'm going to say it should be probably a minimum of 1 year to maybe even 2 years before you should be let out in the wild, because there's a lot of things you need to see and witness before you're just released and being able to answer questions and help people out.
Absolutely.
So, find a good piercer, see if they do apprenticeships, and you kind of go from there. It's really tough getting in the industry. It's awesome when you get here, but I'll let you know, it's not really a part-time thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I want to do this just on my spare time. And it's like, I'm going to be a doctor on my spare time. I'm not calling us doctors, but it's a commitment.
It is.
To do it right, you have to commit a lot of time.
Yep, time
Yeah.
and just like life too.
Yeah.
I feel like it's not really. I mean, I guess it is something that you can technically be part of the way into and part of the way out, but it definitely is something that is very all encompassing.
It's a career that is also a lifestyle. It's weird because they're all tied into the same, and even when I'm not working, it's still working.
Yep.
Yeah.
From Tanika Knight, what is your opinion on places that still use piercing guns?
Here's my favorite thing about piercing guns. Even the piercing gun companies know that they're bad, so they rebranded all the piercing guns, and they don't use piercing guns anymore. The design is identical, 100% the same, but now they're pressure-sensitive devices because it's not illegal to use pressure-sensitive devices on other parts of the body, and that's what's going on here in Las Vegas. So I hate it. I hate it. We know it's bad. We know they spread diseases, but yet they're still around, and the city won't enforce these laws. They need to stop piercing people with these things. If it spreads diseases, it should be banned. It's a public health issue, straight up. You
Absolutely.
know, if you can't sterilize something, you're spreading hepatitis, it should be banned.
Yep. And when was the last time you saw a sink at a piercing pagoda?
Yeah, for real. Like, go into those places. They take the gun out or the pressure-sensitive device, throw it in a drawer. I've seen them maybe wipe it down with an alcohol wipe real quick, and you know. But and then they claim 100% sterile piercing because the jewelry is in a package. I could say the same thing, but there's airborne pathogens. But the thing is when you get pierced by a professional, everything's been sterilized, not just the jewelry.
Yep.
And if you put a sterile piece of jewelry cartridge in a contaminated gun, which has blood spray on there, fight me on that one. Tell me it doesn't, because when you shove something through there, there's micro spray of blood back, and you're just putting blood on the ear and then piercing with a sterile implement. Doesn't matter if it's sterile if there's blood all over your ear.
Yep, becomes contaminated.
It's really gross when you break it down. And then, like Nova said, look for a hand washing sink. They don't even wash their hands. They're handling money all day long, which has, I'm not going to tell you what's all on money, but all those germs are getting put right in there because they're reaching into a glove box, contaminated from all the money they have, and then reaching for a dirty piercing gun, which has micro spray of blood all over it, and then is putting in a piece of jewelry, which is too short, and they're telling you to spin and rotate it with contaminated hands throughout the day. I don't know. I'm kind of passionate about this. I'm not a fan of guns.
Truly.
Piercing guns.
Very specifically, yeah.
Yes.
A follow-up from iShow. Because you suggested I use emu oil now for my bump, then I found out that the oil calms down the itchiness of eczema a lot. I just wanted to share it with the viewers.
Wonderful.
By the way, my bump is still there, and yes, I empathize with you. I've been dealing with irritation bumps on my high nostrils for weeks.
It's frustrating. Maybe you need shorter or longer posts. Talk to your piercer about that. The emu oil really, really does help. I'm glad I found a remedy for something else for you. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's so good for the skin. Yeah, we should look more into that. That's really cool if it really works for eczema too.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's a magical oil. I love that bird. I love that bird.
Right. Did you know that I believe the emu is the only, well, not the only, but one of the only animals that has ever, like, a country has declared a war against the animals? There was the Australian versus emus.
I remember seeing some video on YouTube on that.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, they were just overpopulating everything.
Yep.
Now, here's another question, Noah, just to get off a little topic. Emu is basically just an ostrich, which kind of developed in another country through different forms of evolution, I believe. Mm-hmm. I wonder if ostrich oil would be pretty similar to emu oil, or if that's even a thing.
I have no idea. I can't imagine that it could be that different, to be honest.
Yeah. You know, but the terrain where everything was kind of raised changes the environment and the, I don't know. Yeah. I get off on tangents like that all the time.
It's an interesting thing to address.
Yeah. I want to look into that one now. So,
from
hey, real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but if you haven't hit the like and subscribe, definitely do that. We'd really appreciate it. Back to Nova.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
From Fatesy. Hi, Scott. I'm interested in piercings that are compatible with over-ear headphones, hearing protection, earmuffs. I already have a Doth, which is compatible.
Yep.
What else would you suggest? Man, I feel like I can comment on this considering I wear over-the-ear headphones all the time.
Fill us in, please.
Conches, perfectly fine. I have forward helix piercing. I have one, but a triple on either side would probably be fine. I really don't have I don't have issues with too many, to be honest. Maybe helix piercings could be tough. Flat piercings may, like the flat back may press up against the inside of the headphones.
Now there's something I want to bring up real quick. Sure. Now, when you say over the ear, are you talking about the full on covers the ear, so your ear's not really being touched, or is it like the small little discs that just put pressure up against your ear? Because hopefully we're talking about the full ear cover ones.
He specifically said like hearing protection and earmuffs.
Yes.
So I would assume that it's like the ones that go totally over.
I just wanted to re-clarify that, because some people say over the ear, it doesn't go in and it's still pressing up against their flats and traguses and so get the big ones.
Agreed. But yeah, I haven't had issues with conch piercings, forward helix piercings. For the most part, you can get away with a lot, I think.
You really can.
Cool. From Dementia. What?
What? How'd you remember what to ask?
Remember what?
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm looking into getting snake bites. What jewelry would you recommend?
Generally, I suggest a 16 gauge labret. And a labret is just like it has a flat disc on the inside, and then the post, it's going to be a little bit long so you have room for any swelling. But you can have a lot of options for different tops. You can do a plain bead. You can do a gem, a cluster of gems, a cluster of beads, opals, spikes. So there's a lot of options. So find something you're happy with. This is something I stress all the time. Don't just get generic jewelry, heal it up, and then fancy it up in the future. Because if you can keep that same top, buy the happy top right away, because you're going to love your piercing that much more. And the more you love it, the better off you take care of it.
Yep. Investing in jewelry is cheaper in the long run.
It really is. Why buy a cheap one to heal it up to spend more money on another one and then throw that cheap one away? Unless you're using them both. You know, if I say, hey, I need a simple one for work, and when I go out, I want the fancy, get pierced with a simple one then. But make sure you're happy.
Yep. I'm struggling with this name. Jonygry. Jonygry. Hi, Scott.
John Gree.
John Nagiri. All right, moving on. Hey, Scott. I'd like to get my nipples pierced, and they're flat as F. Can I still get them pierced, or does it have to be a weird modified version of the piercing, or would I have to get pierced behind the nipple?
Sometimes you have to get a little bit into the areola, but you don't want to go too far, because when you go too far into it, it creates something I and other piercers call triple nipple. Because let me draw again here. I think is the easiest way to go about this. But the other thing I was going to say is your tissue loose enough where you can actually pull the nipple out, or is your chest tight enough where you can't even get a grip? Because I've seen that before, where people have such a tight chest and a flat nipple, and if you can't get that tissue out, it's just going to reject out. But I draw a picture of a nipple or a target, or however you want to. I should finish drawing here. Now, generally, when you're looking at the nipple, you want to be right at the base of the nipple and go kind of parallel and center straight through it. Now, sometimes if the nipple's a little bit underdeveloped, you need to bring it out just a little bit, like about that, to make sure you have enough tissue to actually heal. But the problem people generally have when piercing a lot of guys or underdeveloped nipples is they bring it way too far out. Getting there. Like so. Now this is going to create triple nipple syndrome, because it's going to create a bump here and a bump here and make it look like you have 3 nipples in a row, and it looks weird. Yeah. So that's kind of the difference. It's like, you can be right on the nipple, like so, if it's big enough, or just a millimeter or 2 off to the side. So, sloppy drawing with Scott. That's what we're going to call this. Yeah, podcast. Sloppy drawing with Scott.
I like it.
I hope that answers your question for you. I forgot what the question was. I just knew I had to draw nipples.
Yeah, it was just, can I get my nipples pierced? They're very flat.
Yes, that's right. So being that the flat, it's underdeveloped, and that means you have to go into the tissue and make sure there's enough tissue to pierce. But if it's too tight and you can't grab a hold of tissue, you're wasting your time.
Yep. So short answer is maybe.
Yeah, short answer is maybe. So we didn't answer that one. Next question.
It's tough to answer anatomy questions without seeing them in person. Again, this is one of those situations where your best bet is to find a good piercer, and they'll tell you.
Correct. And that's going to be situational for every single thing I answer on here. It's like, I'm answering to the best of my ability, but there might be a factor I'm not seeing or understanding, and can change the actual results. So find a piercer too and talk to them and discuss.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
From Shallon, speaking of septum stretching, I got mine pierced at a 10 gauge in August, and I have an 8 gauge titanium clicker ready to go.
Sweet.
When do you think I can try going up? Should I try and use a taper or a glass pincher?
what did you get pierced with is the question, because you got pierced with, it said 8 gauge or 10 gauge?
10.
10. It
10
could be a
gauge.
captive bead ring, and if it's niobium, that means there's going to be some weight there, and it's going to stretch naturally, and you might be able to slide the jewelry in. But if it's a captive bead ring, you're going to need tools to get that thing out. If it's circular, maybe. I mean, the thing is it's you're healed up enough where you can probably take it out and try to see if the next one falls into place. If you can't, just get it in. Don't force it. Don't hurt it. Go back to the other ring and then set up the appointment or go see your piercer to have them help you put it in. Generally, septums are healed up within a couple months. Generally, like 2 months, you should be pretty well healed up. When your piercing was done, even though it was done at a 10 gauge, it probably wasn't too terribly painful. And if it hurt pretty bad, that means they hit the cartilage, and that means you need to wait a little bit longer.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I know of a guy, a piercer, that had I don't remember what size it was, but had a titanium tunnel in his septum that was stuck. And he just left it in there for like 15 years or something crazy. And I was like, I don't think I could operate knowing that like I have something stuck in my nose.
I helped solve a situation identical to that.
Really?
A friend of mine had stretched his septum up to a 0 gauge and put a double flare titanium tunnel in there.
Who are you talking about? Maybe it's the same dude.
Jamie Clark.
Oh, that's not who. That's not who I was talking
He's a piercer I used to work with, and then he couldn't get it out, and we started getting into panic mode. And I remember sitting in the room with like ring closing pliers and all these things, trying to crush it enough to get it through his nose.
Yep.
At the same time, shaking, squeezing, trying to bend titanium and not hurt Jamie because his tool's in his nose. And then the solution I came up with was stacking. I was like, hey, why don't you take home a 16 gauge or a couple 16 gauge rings, put them in the bottom between your nose and that was enough. When he took the rings out, the double flare just fell right out.
That's a great idea. Actually.
Yep, it really, really worked. But yeah, oh my God, that was the scariest. Tools in there shaking, and he's just like, we're done.
I'm sure it didn't feel great.
So, yep.
We've got another septum question. Today is a septum-driven day.
I wonder if Kelsey's piercing septums today. I bet she is.
I know she did 3 yesterday.
Okay.
So, but this one's from Kat. I've had my septum pierced for almost 3 years now. However, one day I went camping and it got really sweaty. This is about a year ago.
Okay.
And it got the dreaded stink, and I cannot get it to stop smelling. Help.
All right. I think I have the answer for you. Natural cooking oil. Get a vegetable oil, peanut oil, olive oil. Olive oil is my personal favorite. Something with a little bit of a smell. And the thing is the oils from your body, dead skin cells, kind of absorb into that metal a little tiny bit. So it's almost like you created a mask of oil. And you can try to clean with soap and water. You can remove a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily go away. So the best thing to do is take that natural cooking oil, coat the ring, so you're putting a better layer of oil over the old layer. And when you do something pleasant like an olive oil or something like that, it's going to have a natural, better smell. That oil is really good for your skin, and hopefully it should get rid of that stinky smell for you. But that's the secret: cooking oil. Crazy,
Absolutely.
huh? Yeah.
I've also had, this wasn't directly related to septums, but my mom and I were on an airplane when I was younger, and there was a really smelly guy that was in front of us, and she had a stroke of genius where she took scented lotion and like put it under her nose and gave me some to put under my nose. So I guess this wouldn't really solve the problem of the stink, but if you're looking to kind of mask it, like a scented lotion would probably help too.
And for those of you who don't know, it's so annoying because it just smells like just dirty feet or something, and it's in your nose, and you swear that the whole world can smell you, and no one else can smell it because it's only in your nose and it's so up in there. But yeah, no one else can generally smell it. I mean, I've heard of other people like where if they're making out, they might be able to smell a dirty septum piercing or dirty nose piercing, but clean your piercings, people.
I was at when I was doing my apprenticeship, there was somebody, I don't remember who it was or what they were getting done, but my mentor Coyote was like, I've never smelled someone that smelled so bad in my entire life. Like, wasn't that terrible? And I was like, I didn't smell anything, man.
Yep.
And he's like, oh no, it's my nostrils.
So I have a friend, his name's Jim, and he was a piercer, and he did a lot of genital piercings back in the day, and he got hit by a couple really nasty smelling people, and he just got paranoid about it. So every time, way before the whole COVID thing, he was wearing masks because he would always have a thing of perfume, and he'd spray the inside of his mask and put that on before every genital piercing. He'd tell people, oh, it's because I spit a lot. It's like, he's done smelling people.
Amen.
Yeah. So
comment from Erica, who asked a bunch of questions. Oh God, I have so many piercings. LOL. Love it.
It happens. It does.
It
happens to the best of us.
And a quick a follow up to that. I'm sorry, I lost my place again. It moved.
It's easy
moved
to do.
on me. This one's from Lillian. I have 25 piercings, including high nostrils and cheeks.
Right on. Probably just a couple more than me. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Indeed. I will say that Scott holds the record for the most times getting pierced out of anybody that I have even met.
You know, the thing is there's people like, there's that, I think a lady in India holds the world's record for most facial and she's got like, her whole face is just completely covered. You should see if you can find her and pull her up and see what we're talking about. But I mean, it's next level, you know, type in world record facial piercings or something. But it's just insane how many people. But the thing is to make it work with your body and still see yourself. Like this person, it's an impressive feat that they've got this many piercings and we're able to heal them up. But at the same time, it's just too much, in my opinion. You see what I'm talking about? It's amazing. That's a lot of piercings, and I would never be able to keep up with. Like, look at that smile line, and you know the guy next to him too. Like all those lip piercings, it's like, how do you know how to tighten a bead? When you reach in to grab the inside of the labret, how do you know you have the right one? You know? So yeah, I don't think I hold the world record by any means, but wow, it's impressive, isn't it?
Indeed.
It really, really is.
Indeed.
Cool.
Awesome. From Sammy. Will Nova ever be revealed on camera? Hearing him on the live streams makes me curious to see who the man behind the camera is. I actually have been. Yeah. I have been on the live streams. There are a few where Scott and Kelsey and I have all been on camera. So
probably 3 or 4 of them, haven't they?
I think 3.
3 of them.
Yep.
And I know 3. If you look on like on my channel, Piercing with Scott, and then you look under like the different live streams, I think some of the screenshots or screensaver things, you'll see his face on there, so you'll know where he is. And I think it's in the comments too. So yeah.
When you find somebody who is insanely irresistibly handsome, that's me. Alrighty. From I don't know. I'm not even gonna try. I'll go with Gia. Hi there.
Hello.
When should I start seeing crusties on my nipple piercings? Healing really good, no pain. It's been 8 days and I haven't seen any crusties yet.
Sometimes that happens. Consider yourself lucky. Sometimes our body just doesn't create as many crusties when it's being cleaned or in showers. Sometimes they just kind of fall off. They are there, but it's just not a lot. So still don't move your jewelry back and forth. And I just had someone in the other day that was saying the same thing and said, like, they got pierced a week ago and like, when did the crusties start? I'm like, you're a lucky one. You know, some people you get massive amounts of crusties. Sometimes it's virtually nothing. So. But yeah, it's still going to take a while to heal. Just be patient.
Awesome. We got a few from Lily and Florence. First, she said you were very low to hear. I know we are. I know we're having a little bit of issue with audio. We are working on.
I'm trying to talk a little closer to the microphone. Is that louder?
That too. That definitely helps. But she also said that she's 73 years old, loves all piercings, has a pink mohawk, and
nice.
And also said that. Scott, you got your mantis done. I also have mine done, and they're great. So
that is amazing. We're mantis twins.
Extremely hard.
Except I don't have a pink mohawk.
Not yet.
Not yet. I don't think it's gonna grow in, dude. I really don't.
We'll get you some extensions.
You tie on to 1 or 2 hairs up here.
Yeah. There you go.
Turn into that guy. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like if you went with a pink mohawk, it would offset being that guy.
I suppose I could get some pink subdermal or like transdermals, do some pink spikes on there. And we could
pull a Sampa von
There's
Cyborg.
A will, there's a way.
Pull a Sampa von Cyborg. You could get the subdermal implants on your head and then anodize some like giant spikes pink.
Yep.
That would go hard. Okay. A little story time from Dementia.
Cool.
I pierced my ear for the second time with a needle. I didn't do any kind of sterilization. It was very painful and got infected after 2 days. Lots of pus and crusties. Was very painful. It's healed now and I love it.
All right. So here's my 2 cents. Just because you can get through it doesn't make it safe. The thing is you could get hepatitis. There's a lot of different bloodborne pathogens which could be exposed to, and you could have that for the rest of your life. That's one of the big concerns. Another big concern is not using proper metals when you're doing this, because you can develop allergies to metal just because you healed it, but pretty soon you can't wear your jeans anymore because the snaps break out in rashes really bad. And you need to coat it with clear nail polish, and all the metal necklaces you can't wear anymore. These are things that can happen. Yeah, you can do it, but we don't ever condone home piercings. Everything needs to be safe, sterile, and clean. I'm glad you healed, and I'm glad you're okay, but do it the right way. That's what we really promote here. We don't ever promote home piercings on this channel.
Agreed.
Yep.
Also, for what it's worth, there's something that I often like to bring up in cases like this called survivorship bias. Mm-hmm. And essentially what that means is like, oh, I did it and I didn't get hurt in any way. So that must mean that the thing that I'm doing can't hurt you. And oftentimes that's not the case. There are always instances where people do things that are dangerous and suffer no consequences. That doesn't necessarily mean that it makes it safe.
That's a good point. I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you're learning, but get it done professionally. And that's what I've always pushed for. There's a reason we have to be licensed. It's a felony if I'm not licensed and I get caught doing this, because it's public endangerment. Yep.
Another one from, not another one. This is a new one, I think, from Amarani. Hi, question.
Hello.
If I've had a brow piercing before and it rejected, to be honest, it was my fault. I slept on it. Do you think it would be a bad idea to redo it?
No.
Also, I had an irritated cartilage piercing too. What about that one?
Okay, so eyebrow piercings sometimes reject, sometimes they don't. It depends on if your anatomy, if you just have a hard, solid ridge where your bone's almost sticking out and you have to pull your skin away from your bone to do the piercing, it's just going to reject again. If you have skin like mine where it's just loose and loosey-goosey like this, the chance of it healing are probably pretty high. Now, I've had about a dozen eyebrow piercings on each side of my eyebrow, so 2 dozen. And I would say probably a little less than half of them rejected out. I don't know why. They just either got irritated when I'm sleeping on them. I changed them too soon. It's probably a lot on me, but they did reject even though I have the right anatomy. And then the next time it worked totally fine. So that's there's my hiccups. All right. So that's kind of how that works. So yeah, I don't think you should not get it done unless you have the improper anatomy and then you're just fighting a battle you can't win.
Agreed. Good summary, I think. We have a hi from Coco Melon. I love your show.
Coco Melon. Welcome. Thank you.
Oh, no, I was saying I love your show to Coco Melon. Coco Melon said hi. There's a kid's show called Coco Melon that's very silly.
I've never seen that one.
I was being sarcastic. It's
yeah.
I had to watch it with my cousin and it's brutal.
So I do want to point this out. I don't know if you guys can see these back here. Those are what are they called? Palo shell or some sort of shell. And those were actually what tribesmen would actually wear in their septums. You can't tell, but I mean, that's that thick. So they have their septum stretched to probably 1 inch to get something like that in there. It's not like it attaches. That's a solid piece that goes all the way through. And it's just some of my artifacts that I collect. And I just thought I want to point that out because it's hard to tell what it is. But yeah, that's a huge septum pieces collection of them. You gonna see if you can find some pictures of, see what I mean? No
Sweet,
joke.
right?
They're skinny, but they're super, super wide. Can you imagine wearing something like that in your nose?
No, I also just getting it pierced. It's rough. They do it with thorns and sharp sticks and other things like that.
What do you mean? They don't have katana?
Yeah, they don't carry katana needles, unfortunately.
Yeah, so
that's funny.
Anyways,
Yes, we will keep it rolling.
how are we doing for questions? It seems like we've been going for a little bit here.
Yeah, we've got we're nearing the end.
Okay, cool.
I think we can push through these last few. We're at about an hour and 43 minutes. So
Right on. God, time just flies by. I feel like we just started this thing.
Same. We'll
Yeah.
probably wrap up in about 15 minutes, so we're gonna scoot through these if
Cool.
possible. Awesome.
See, at this point, I try to answer quicker, but I think you all know that I really don't.
I'll try to
Push
see if
me.
we can get through all of them. From Jude Waldo Rad, Pano Spookies. He was the person that we were talking about earlier that was interested in becoming a piercer. Listening to you talking while working is awesome.
Thank you. I love what I do. It's hard to
absolutely.
consider it work when you enjoy what you do.
Absolutely. And also Tina88, who is the person with the bad apprenticeships, said,
Yes.
thank you so much. I don't ever want to give up. I love pushing myself to learn and be better, which is 99% of the battle.
I try to tell everyone to be follow your passions, and the money will eventually be there. You just got to open your eyes and find the right path which works for that passion. Like I said, you'll eventually find the right apprentice.
Absolutely. From Peart Fan, if you're talking about Neil, sweet.
Yes.
My conch to conch industrial is 6 months into healing without any problems. Interesting. Hooray. Is it too early to change the bar to my custom one ordered through my studio? I don't know why when I pictured conch to conch, I pictured it going around your head. But that would be cool.
I don't know. You custom ordered a custom. I don't know what it is. If the swelling's gone down and you don't have crusties and it seems okay, you might be okay. But changing out a conch to conch industrial is not necessarily an easy thing. Trying to feed and get things through there, so you might need to see your piercer. And if you see your piercer, ask him if it's okay to change it. I would go talk to your piercer. 6 months, it's possible, but
I would
kinda
err on the
unlikely.
side of caution with this one.
Yeah. Can you pull up a conch to conch industrial?
Sure.
People always think of an industrial as just the bar going across your ear. This is another option. It's way more extreme, but it's just amazing. And it's, he'll show you the pictures here. There's a bunch of different industrials. You check out my industrial video, but yeah, you see how you have that? There you go. Straight across, up and down for upper conch and lower conch.
They're cool.
Yeah. Super, super rad. And you can see some of the other industrials on the side. You add chains. You can do a little bend from the rook to conch. It's kind of like a fake conch to conch. But yeah, congratulations. I'm really curious what the custom bar is.
Me
I bet
too.
it looks cool.
Me too. From Jude Waldo, what kind of coffee is that? We must know.
All right. It's an Americano. Well, like 4 shots of espresso, a bunch of ice and water, and it melts down to this. And it's about all I can handle. I can't do cold brews. It makes me really shaky. And one thing I learned a long time ago is nobody likes a shaky piercer.
Truth.
Nobody does. Why are you shaking so much? I promise. I've done this before. So I got to limit myself on the caffeine in these cold brews, or not cold brews. That's what I just said. The Americanos. Yep.
I actually didn't know that's what that was. I'm really interested in getting into espresso. I personally love caffeine.
Yeah. And cold brews are way more caffeinated because this uses the heat to press through the coffee, and I think the heat kind of burns out some of the caffeine. And cold brew is like a tea bag with coffee, and you steep it overnight, and it's just way more intense. Like I take a couple sips and I can feel it in my blood. Yeah.
Yep. Let's see, from Mandy. Just
We're
wanted
going
to-
faster on these questions, aren't we?
Yes, we are. Sorry about that. I'll make sure to keep us on task.
Good luck.
Yeah, right. Just wanted to say thank you so much for answering my question. I'm here in Cali, so maybe I will be able to come to you. Here's to hoping. Thanks again.
I love that. And if nothing else, it's Las Vegas. There's always fun stuff to do in Vegas.
Absolutely.
Make the appointment and you make a little day out of the whole ordeal. Yeah.
From Angela, 6.5 months into my snug, and there are bumps that come and go.
Yep.
They never get too big, but they're still annoying at times. Should I expect a year for this to continue?
Maybe not necessarily another year, but I would say at least another 6 months. Yep. Snugs are the roughest of all the cartilage piercings to heal, the natural cartilage piercings. Like if you're trying to do industrials and bend stuff, it's going to get a little different. But anyways, when you get to the point where it's like you just always have bars sticking out, downsize. Because once it stops moving, it stops being irritated, the better off you are. But you still, so you could be ready to downsize at this point. So wait till the bumps go down, give it a week or so, and if they stay out for that week, set up the appointment, get a shorter bar in there, and that should help quite a bit. I don't know if you've tried the emu oil, but the emu oil really helps on those bumps and calm things down and brings you back to normal. They're just so easily irritated and agitated, and that's the issue. So, yep.
From dementia again. If I get snake bites, would lip balms and other things like that irritate it?
Yes. You got to be very careful of lip balms, chapstick, glosses, things like that. As long as it doesn't get inside the piercing hole. But I've seen chapstick really irritate people. I've seen, because there's a bunch of other ingredients in there, and none of it was meant to go inside the body. It's just made for that outer organ, the skin. So, yeah, so as long as you're careful about it, you're okay. It's another nice thing. It's not getting pierced with rings, because the ring's going to rotate and it will pull that stuff directly inside and immediately upsets it. I've seen this many, many times. So, but yeah, just be careful and you should be fine.
From Pearl, I re-pierced my second holes on my earlobe. I'm hoping they heal by 3 months. I plan to get a triple helix next month. I'm real excited.
Cool. Yeah, you should be okay. The thing is like the closer that lobe gets to the cartilage, the longer the healing process gets. Sometimes if you're right on the edge of the cartilage and the lobe, it's almost worse than a solid cartilage piercing. So, but generally second lobes, you should be totally fine. It's the thirds and fourths that really start
Getting tougher.
Yep.
Joe, my conch industrial, we were just talking about that.
Cool.
5 months old, no longer feels tender to touch.
That's amazing. That's cool. That means it was done properly, because when piercings are done at different angles and they don't line up, they just take that much longer to heal. And yeah, theoretically, like 4 months, you could be healed up in a conch piercing, as long as you're not sleeping on it and it's done at the right angle and you're taking care of it properly. So 6 months, it's a possibility.
Yep.
Congratulations.
This is also a follow-up to somebody that was interested in becoming a piercer.
Sure.
They said, thanks, wasn't planning to do it part-time. I will try and find about the laws, and I have some piercers in mind. Thank you.
Good. You're very welcome. Good luck to you, and welcome to the world if you can get in. It's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. From Azriel, piercing guns should be outlawed. Amen.
Straight up. Yeah, I'll sign that petition, that law, whatever it is. It's just insane. It's like cigarettes. Like, they kill people. How come they're still legal?
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I understand people have addictions, but if there's a safe alternative.
There's also not as much money in piercing guns, I feel like, as there is in tobacco. So that's aggravating.
True.
But we're going to skip forward to Oaken Cloaken. I think that's what that says. It's in a fancy font. So this is kind of a long one. Hello there, Piercing with Scott. I have a few questions. Sorry if this is long, but I'm in a predicament. I got my earlobes pierced by a professional piercer, and they turned out uneven. I'm very self-conscious, and I want them to look perfectly straight. And yeah, even it's been 6 years and the old scars are still visible. I don't want them visible even if I get re-pierced. Is it possible to get my earlobes pierced symmetrical, straight, even? And then they said, oh, and the piercer that I went to was an APP member. Still turned out uneven. I want to wear hoops. Do hoops have to be pierced differently than studs? Can I actually kick this one off, Scott?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So here's the thing about symmetry. It doesn't exist. Everybody's ears are different. When a piercer is trying to put paired piercings on either side, really what the goal is to provide the illusion that they're symmetrical. If they were truly straight across, they probably would look super uneven. Just because, like I say, everybody's ears are different. I know it can be tough, but it might just not be possible to get them perfectly perfect. Bigger jewelry can sometimes hide things like that, especially with rings. But chances are, if that's something that you're self-conscious of and that you really notice, it's probably not something other people are going to notice. It's just something that you're seeing that is bothering you. But Scott, if you have a different opinion.
I do. No, not a different opinion. I'm going to add to that. There's different ways to look at this for being what straight is. Like if you only want to wear hoops and you need both hoops to have exactly 3 millimeters gap on the bottom, and it's not that would drive me nuts too. Then I would say, yes, take the one out you don't like, maybe take pictures of them so you have a reference and say, hey, this one needs to be re-pierced. And like, a month or so later, you can pierce it higher up. Before you do that, you're going to want to get some sort of Mederma or scar tissue remover to kind of help remove some of that scar tissue to minimize that so it looks as good as possible. Now, as far as being straight goes, you got to look at your whole face, not just each individual ear, because each ear is going to be different. Sometimes one ear is higher than the other. Sometimes it doesn't line up with your eyes, and you're seeing how the eyes are level with the. All these things are factors. Now, ultimately, it's what you're happy with. If you're not happy, take it out and start over. But keep in mind, there is, like Nova said, no such thing as perfectly straight. There's just really close and something that bothers you and something that doesn't. So it's tough. It's really, really tough to find absolutely perfect. But if it bothers you, take one of them out. If you can leave the one in, and a month or so later, you can get the other side re-pierced with that slight adjustment. But there's no reason to take both out and start them both over at the same time if you can help it. If you already have one going, this one's going to heal and do much, much better. Now, do you have to pierce at different angles for rings? No, but sometimes one ear might hang down further than the other, and I would ask the person, are you planning on wearing rings? Then I would measure from the bottom of the earlobe up, so that way it's the same amount of gap on the bottom of the earring. So if you're wearing 3/8 rings on both sides, they're going to have the same amount hanging down or the same tightness instead of wearing two different size rings to accommodate the same type of look, if that makes any sense.
I think that's a great answer.
Yes.
So this is a follow-up from Lillian. I believe she's talking about the piercing guns.
Sure.
It says the stud goes in slowly now. Stud gun studs are longer now and no backs on them anymore. So I think just describing some of the changes.
No backs on them. How does it stay in?
Beats me.
I know you're talking about studs. I think it's STUDZ or something like that. It's like a piercing company where they actually use, I think, more piercing guns. It might be a slightly different design, but I do know that most states have laws that say piercing guns are not allowed to use body jewelry, as in labrettes, capped bead rings, or barbells, and vice versa. Professional body piercers who use needles are not allowed to use butterfly back or clasp style earrings. So there's still things that kind of keep us separated that way, and they might be stepping into that category where it's kind of a mixture of both. And if that's the case, they're just taking a blunt barbell and shoving it through your ear, because piercing guns don't have needles in there, and that's what makes the clean incision. So I don't really know.
She did follow up and say that it just says ball end, so I assume that maybe they're using ball ends now.
So it's some sort of a screw end, ball end. So there again, it's not much different as far as the trauma does to the ear and the way you can sterilize it, but it's just they're given more room for swelling, which means don't spin or rotate it, which is a step in the right direction, but it's still not enough. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for chiming in on that. I appreciate. I'm going to look more into that one because I'm always interested in the newest technologies and what they're doing.
It's good to know for sure.
Try to be nice with my words.
So I think this one, it's either Loke, Loke, or Loki. Hey, Scott, I've just started my apprenticeship. Do you have any tips for me just starting out? Love from Sweden.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Congratulations on your new apprenticeship. Be patient. You need to walk before you can run. Don't do stuff you're not comfortable with. And if you have questions, ask them, and if your mentor doesn't know the answer, research it. There is so much information out there. The more knowledge you bring in, the better. I always tell people there's more than one way to do an earlobe piercing. Some people clamp, some use receiving tubes, some use complete freehand, some are going to be only there's so many different methods. Some pierce into gauze, some pierce into cork, some pierce just into nothing. There's no right or wrong. It's what's best for you. Now, that being said, I always encourage people to listen to like the Piercing Wizard podcast, listen to these live chats, and go to the APP conference, Association of Professional Piercers. Because you're going to talk to other piercers and you're going to get other points of view. There's no one thing which is real fact and the absolute way to do things. It's what works best for you, what's safest for your customer, and what's best for everyone overall.
Yep. I know that there are a lot of European APP stuff happening now. I have a friend named Colin who is going to be teaching over there pretty soon.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's only a couple years old or something, but it's pretty cool. And still people from all over the world, you're going to get perspectives and don't go to your mentor and go, oh, well, I shouldn't do that because so-and-so on the internet says this or so-and-so. Yep. If, just approach it the right way. Say like, I'm following your way. Like so-and-so, what do you think about this? And then your mentor should be able to have an answer why they don't do it that way. Or you might even open up and say, hey, that's pretty awesome. I know one of my last apprentices, he got an apprenticeship because he taught me something. Came in and taught me a little bit about pubic piercings. And I was like, oh, normally it's surface bar. And he's just like, well, I read the piercing Bible and Elaine Angel says you're supposed to use a 10 gauge curved barbell and it should be in the crease. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to do the crease. He's like, no, I think you are. And then I did my research and I was like, yeah, you're someone I want to teach. That's the type of person I'm looking for.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So
from Ruru, yippee. Hello guys from Hungary. Nice to see you.
Hungary. Awesome. Welcome in. Thank you for being here.
Follow up from Alice. So Vegas is a possible vacation spot. If that happens, I'm totally going to make an appointment with you.
That's what I love the most about this. Like when I opened my business called Piercing Vegas, instead of spending a bunch of money on all the advertising in town, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do a YouTube channel because the whole world travels to Vegas. Why not just advertise on there and just talk about piercing, something I already love to do instead of just give someone else the money to do it. I'm like, I'm going to do it myself. And it really worked out well. And I get to meet people from all over the world and, it's pretty darn amazing.
It is for sure.
It really, really is. So,
from Brooks, can you explain hot compresses and cold compresses, when to and how to?
Sure. Hot compresses are when you need something to drain. Like if you have like an abscess is like if you had like almost an infection trapped under the skin and you need the crusties and the stuff to get out of there, or if it's super, super irritated and you just want to get those bad germs out of there, that's where you're going to take like a towel, a wet rag that's not going to leave any residue or cotton stuff behind, and you want to use hot water and actually hold it over your piercing, and that's going to help kind of draw things out. Sometimes if you have like an ear piercing, a nose piercing, or a piercing you can actually dip into a cup of water. Like if you had a cup of like warm water, sometimes that's just as good as the compress where you can dip your nose in that cup. I was tempted. I couldn't help it. So if you dip your nose in that, it's going to kind of flush things out. It's the same concept. Now, another popular hot compress, is chamomile tea. I don't understand the science behind this, but if you take a chamomile tea bag and you get it wet, and then you just hold the wet tea bag over your piercing, that can help calm down upset piercings. And this is a widely known thing, so it's not, and don't use any random tea. It's got to be the chamomile tea. But the hot is going to draw things out. The chamomile can actually help. Now, cold compresses, when you whack your ear really, really hard and it swells up so much, if you add heat, it's going to cause more swelling. So that's where I think the cold compress is more of reducing swelling and getting it to calm down. So if it's not draining and you need stuff out, it's the hot. If it's swollen and really upset, that's when I would go with the cold. So that's my 2 cents. Nova, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you summed it up perfectly. Yeah.
Right on.
First
word.
To reduce swelling, cold compress. And if you need something to drain, hot compress.
Yep.
Love it.
You said it in like 5 words. I did in like 300. Yeah.
I was summarizing you. I think that makes I think you want the detail on that one.
Cool.
Hi, I love your videos, from Sarah Windley.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for watching my videos. Thanks for being a part of the community.
Absolutely. So Forget Me said, I got my nostril pierced with a 14 gauge Libre. The piercer didn't inform me before the piercing about the gauge. I thought nostrils are normally pierced at an 18 or a 16. Is that a normal practice?
Nostrils are normally pierced at 18 or a 20. 16 is pretty rare in my opinion. It's not unheard of, but 14 means they didn't have jewelry in the shop and that piercer wanted to eat lunch that day. That's not normal practice. I would never pierce someone that many sizes because there's not going to be the jewelry options you would have for everything else. It's like piercing a belly button at like a 8 gauge. I didn't have any normal 14 gauge curved barbells, so we just did an 8 gauge. I'm like, well, what about the jewelry? Like, yeah, you don't get options in the future now.
Yep.
Unless you downsize. So, but yeah, not normal. I'm sorry. I would find a different piercer. If I was that piercer and I didn't have the jewelry, I would say, look, I'm going to order some jewelry. We should have it here in the next couple weeks to a month or so. I can call you when it comes in. Otherwise, I do have larger sizes, but I would inform you that this is much larger than normal. I'm not opposed to it, as you can see in my nose, but you're not going to have as many jewelry options. If you need it done today, we can do this, but I would suggest waiting till later.
Yep.
And as a piercer, people are going to respect you way more because as the piercer that just pierced their 14 gauge nostril, they're probably not going back to you now. You know, you just lost that money. You made the money for the day, but you're not seeing the big picture.
It's true. Yep. Long-term lifetime
Take care
client
of your
value, right?
customers. Take care. They're the ones that pay our bills. And if you ostracize your customers and you're mean to them and you're using improper jewelry, you're not going to last. No one's going to go to you.
Agreed.
Yep.
For what it's worth, we used to do nostrils at 16 for like when I first started my apprenticeship, 16 or an 18 usually. There's a school of thought that slightly thicker and having extra stability can be helpful in nostril piercings, but ultimately we did end up switching to 18.
I agree. But I don't think you're in the majority on that one. I'm not opposed to that, but I think a majority of the people are going to be piercing at 18 or 20.
Like I say, we ended up piercing at 18, but for like the first 6 months of my apprenticeship, and I'm not sure how long before that, we used 16.
Yep. But you guys were also using the katana needles.
Yes, we were.
Which are way far superior than most others. So.
It's true. Okay, so Sunflower 666.
Sunflower.
Try to zoom through these last ones. I want to stretch up my rook to a 14 gauge. How long after piercing can I do that?
Rooks are some pretty dense cartilage, and they generally take a long time to heal. Stretching to a 14 gauge, I would give it a year, at least a year. You know, and the thing is you probably got pierced with a curved barbell. If the anatomy's right where you can get a ring in there, if you put like a little clicker in there, that's going to move around a little bit more and might loosen it up to make the stretch to a 14 a little bit easier. Rooks are tough to stretch. I'm not saying it can't be done because that's one of the first cartilage piercings I've ever seen stretched. Saw a kid come in the shop back in 1996, I think, and he had like a 4-gauge curved barbell in his rook.
Whoa.
And I was like, what are you doing, dude? How did you pierce it that big? He's like, I stretch it. I'm like, you can't stretch cartilage. And he's like, I did.
That's awesome.
And a week later, I found myself stretching my tragus. So, yeah.
There you go. That's awesome.
Yep. I did. That was his answer. I was like, okay, I guess you can do it. You just got to go way slower. And that's why you want the tissue to be loose enough to where the stretch goes in easy. If it's not ready, it's going to hurt really, really bad.
Agreed.
Yeah.
From Brooks, I got my lobes pierced with a 16 gauge. Don't love the placement. 12 weeks healed. Should I let them close before re-piercing them at a 10 gauge?
Yeah. Now, again, if you're not happy, just take them out, give it a good month or 2 months, let them kind of massage that tissue, break it down, and you're probably going to have a little bit of scars, but keep in mind what you like. You know, like, are they too low? Are they too far in? And use that as that reference point, you know. Make sure you take a picture of your ears before you take them out, too, so you can show your piercer. Say, hey, I took them out because they're too low. You see how they hang in? I don't need them to do this. It helps us a lot.
Yep. Here's a follow-up from Kat, who had the smelly septum.
Yes.
So grateful for the advice. I've tried everything, and I didn't want to give up on my piercing. It's been so bad I stopped breathing through my nose. Y'all are the goats, greatest of all time.
I really hope that works out for you. It generally does. It's such a weird little trick that most people don't know. And what we're talking about is if you got that stinky septum jewelry and just you get that smell, natural cooking oil, vegetable oil, olive oil, peanut oil, rub that into there, and that should get rid of your smell. No more stinky septums.
Absolutely. Let's see. Here's something from Lillian. My tongue was done on a slant to avoid the vein, which is something that is pretty common.
It does happen. A lot of times we're more avoiding the frenum, which is that web, which is on the bottom side, because if that web is there and the bead rests against it, it just really gets raw and really, really painful. A lot of piercers are afraid of that vein in the bottom. I'm really not. I mean,
Just got to roll it out of the way.
Veins roll. Think about when you go to get blood drawn, how many times you've had to like extra shots because they can't find the vein. They can see it. They're feeling and they're aiming for it and they can't hit it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, piercing needles kind of do the same thing. And I mean, and there's really not that big of a risk. Think about the people that split or bifurcate their tongue. They're cutting their tongue in half and you're worried about a little tiny needle when they're taking a scalpel and cutting it in half.
There you go.
So that being said, it's like, yeah, you're going to bleed a little bit more. It wouldn't be the end of the world. And a lot of times it just kind of rolls off to the side anyways.
From Dementia again, they were talking about their second ear piercing when they were 13. They wanted it really badly. Thank you for the advice. I since then have pierced my helix with a sterilized needle. This time, sadly, it closed up and I no longer have it. They also said that they are getting their septum done as soon as possible. What gauge should we get it pierced? Should I get it pierced with?
Go to a professional.
Yep.
Don't do it yourself.
Yep.
Stop piercing yourself. Even though you're using a sterile needle, there's something called aseptic technique where we use different pairs of gloves so we're not cross-contaminating and bringing, because just because this was sterile at one point doesn't mean it remains sterile. As soon as I just touch it with my hands, it's not sterile anymore. Yep. You know, so if you're touching tabletops, the sink, the people that never wash their hands and all those germs are now going in it, now you have hepatitis.
Yep.
So you have to know how to use the proper sterile tools as on top of having those sterile implements. So go see a professional. 16 is the most common size that most people get pierced at. That's probably going to be your best option. You're going to have the most jewelry options for the future too. So.
Yep. And just worth mentioning also, I feel like just because the needle was sterilized doesn't make the jewelry sterile or any of the other tools that you may have to use sterile. So
autoclaves are not cheap.
They are not. They are not.
And I'll say this. I've had this discussion several times too. People are coming in with like pre-sterilized jewelry and stuff from overseas. Every country has different sterilization practices. Here where I'm at, we have a 6-month expiration date on these packages because there's paper on the back, plastic on the front, and that paper is permeable by airborne pathogens. So after 6 months, it's not considered sterile anymore. But when you're ordering stuff overseas, other countries, other places, sometimes you're seeing 6 years, 10 years expiration dates on here, which doesn't make any sense. And how can they do a 6-year expiration date if here it's only 6 months because things aren't sterile and clean anymore? And then who knows if they're testing their autoclaves to say it's actually sterile. Just because, you know, you have a package and the dark arrow on there says, oh, it's been sterilized. That's a low-level integrator. I use class 5 integrators, which cost a lot more money, and they can't just be put into a piece of paper.
Yep.
So things have to be tested, and then you run spore tests on top of that. So just because it was sterile doesn't mean it still is, and there's the cross-contamination thing. So That's a lot. It's a lot. It's so hard to pierce yourself, so never, ever, ever really condone piercing yourself.
Agreed. We've got about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to try and go through these
all right,
with some speed.
Speed round.
From Rago, how is it possible that you don't need to be licensed, but these hacks, or that you need to be licensed, but people with piercing guns don't need licensing? That's a great question.
It's a great question. The quick, simple answer is it's wrong. I'm pretty sure that the company that owns piercing guns hired lobbyists to go to Washington to say that outer perimeter of the earlobe is not part of the human body. That's why they don't follow any laws or regulations that we have to.
Yep. It's also way less expensive than you think to just like buy a senator. I watched a YouTube video on it, and
really,
like 10 or 15 grand. Like, yeah, you can basically just give it to them. And
so yeah, that's in the laws. Look it up in the state. Like look up a body art or body piercing laws, and when you go through and you find earlobe, type in earlobe, and it'll say earlobe's not part of the human body. They don't follow anything. So that's why they can't use the jewelry we use, and we can't use the jewelry they use because it's something different. I always said I would take one for the team, and I'd go up to a police officer, probably tell them I'm going to do this, flick him in the ear, get arrested for assault on an officer so we can get rid of that dumb law and make them follow the same regulations that we do.
I love it.
I'd love to take one for the team, but I just don't want to go to jail for that long for this purpose, but I would be willing to do it.
That would be fun PR.
Yeah.
Cool. From Sasha Sun. Is there an upper gauge limit for wearing 20 gauge to 18 gauge jewelry? For example, if my ears are at a 10 or an 8 gauge, would there be any problems with me wearing 20 or 18 gauge earrings, provided they don't fall out?
No, they're going to shrink up on you. I don't know if that's what your purpose is, like if you're trying to shrink your piercings, but when you don't wear something, because you make a crescent shape incision for an earlobe and it's stretching, pushing the tissue off to the side. So when something's not in there, it wants to go back to that smaller state. That's why stretched ears generally close up. And after 0/00, they tend to not close up as much. So yeah, you can wear whatever you want, but there's a chance it's going to close up and you're not going to get the 10 gauge back in.
Yep.
As easy.
That's a good answer. From Jay, and I think I might be able to pull this one off quickly. Jay, where to even start with an apprenticeship? I've been researching a lot and writing down info I learned, but do you know where to start into actually getting into the industry? And typically what I recommend when people ask me this is the best thing that you can do is develop a relationship with a piercer. Start getting pierced, start going to the shop regularly, ask questions, bring questions, show an interest. And like I say, through that relationship, either when they're ready to take on an apprentice, you'll be the first person that comes to mind, or maybe they can steer you to somebody else who is taking on an apprentice.
But keep in mind, we have a job to do, and there's a point where it's like, we know you're interested, but you can't hang out all day. There's a point where you're annoying, where we're not going to want to apprentice you too. So there has to be a point where you show the desire and the knowledge and the will, but know when it's,
Awesome. We've got only a couple more questions, so we'll knock them out. Not really a piercing, more of a surgical procedure, but what do we think about tongue splitting? I've always considered it, but it scares the heck out of me.
I interviewed Steve Truitt at APP a couple years ago, piercing conference, and he does the tongue bifurcation, tongue splitting. I think we talk about it in there. Do I talk about that one? Do you remember, Nova?
I don't remember.
I had 3 videos with him, but if you check out one of those videos, he does actually talk about it. I know we do the coin slot. Yeah, I think I talk about the tongue splitting in there too. So highly recommend listening to that, because that's coming from one of the better body modification artists out there, in my opinion.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of great ones, but it's like there's also a lot of hacks. I trust Steve.
Yes.
I trust Steve.
Biggest thing is do not go to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing for that. They can ruin you.
So dangerous.
But Kelsey has her tongue split, I believe. And,
Kelsey
hasn't had any issues.
Yep.
Let's see. Love you, Scott. You're the reason I got my doth pierced.
Thank you. I'm so honored.
What is your advice if you want a second and third lobe piercings but are actively stretching your first lobes?
You can still kind of do it. It depends on how big you want to go, because once you start, you're actively stretching. Like, do you want to go to 1 inch? Do you only want to go to a 0 gauge? If you're only going to a 0, things aren't going to shift or change that much. But if you're going up to 1 inch, things are going to shift, and the second piercing could eventually grow into that first big hole. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. But if you're healing a fresh lobe piercing, you don't want to be stretching it, because you're going to put irritation on the fresh piercing, causing bumps and things to grow. So if you just got to a 0 gauge and then you pierce your other earlobes, you're going to want to wait probably like 4 months, 3 months minimum before you even think about stretching to the next gauge up on your earlobe, the first one. Does that make sense? Did I say that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So it's situational. If you're going really big, I would wait.
Yep.
Or really space it out and kind of guesstimate, because that's all you're doing. You don't know how close it'll eventually get. And everyone always has a goal size. Like famous last words, I'm only going to a 00.
Yep.
Never, ever, ever.
It's true.
Yep. Well, once in a blue moon, but not very likely.
There you go. All right. I think we'll take 2 more questions. Does
2
that
more.
sound good. Let's see. I think this is a good one. Have you tried tattooing? What did you think? From Camille.
Oh, interesting question. Yes, I have tried tattooing. I actually started an apprenticeship a few years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And I quit the apprenticeship because I knew that to be good at tattooing, I would have to devote all my time just like piercing, and that would take away from my piercing. And honestly, I didn't like taking time away from my piercing. So I was like, I'm just not a tattoo artist and I'm not going to do it. I have tattooed one person before. His name is Nick, and I used to work with him in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I remember one day he was tattooing himself. It was on his leg, and he kind of had his leg up and like kind of crossed over his upper, and he's tattooing. It was a pig that's a checkerboard type design, and I think it has something to do with the Navy. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was coloring in these little squares, and I was just kind of watching him, and he's like, hey, have you ever even tried tattooing? And I was like, no. And he's like, do you? And by then my hand was already under the sink and I was washing my hands, gloving up, and then I picked up the tattoo machine and I was like, I've been around tattooing, so I understand how this works. You stretch the skin. And I was like, hey, is the needle set to depth? Because sometimes they set the machine so the needle only comes out so far, so you can only go so deep. And he's like, yeah, I have it set so you can't go too deep. And I was like, sweet, I don't need to worry about pressure. So I just grabbed his skin and just started coloring in, and his eyes got like that big. And I was like, oh, I'll lighten up a little bit. He's like, please. So yes, I have.
Love that.
So I just colored in a little centimeter by centimeter square, but it was fun. It was fun, and it's not my cup of tea. I love painting and doing art, but my true art and my true passion is piercing.
Love it. All right, last question. I want a rook piercing from Erica. How bad does it hurt?
I hesitate because it depends on the piercer you go to, and there's different ways to do this piercing. I personally pierce bottom of the rook out because you can slide the jewelry in much faster. The bead screwing on the top is much, much easier. And sometimes when you're piercing top down, the bevel of the needle can kind of get, and you'll feel an extra pinch or an extra little tear on the bottom. That's generally when I tell people it hurts more, is because that bevel of the needle catches a little bit. So if you go to a piercer who's fairly experienced, we generally know how to do the piercing without catching that bevel of the needle. When it's done properly, it's a sharp pinch, but it's more pressure than anything, in my opinion. And they're fairly easier to heal because your curved barbell lays nice and flat to the face, and they're not too problematic. It stays swollen during the whole healing process, but it's generally not too painful. It's just like having a bruise on the side of your ear. So it's more scary than painful, and that's where I'm going to end that one. Now, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe, even hit that little bell notification thing so you know when we go live. And yeah, I really appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you all have a wonderful day. So yeah, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and of course, keep putting holes in your body. We'll see you all in the next video.
Ended.
All right.
Woo!